We'll give it 2 more minutes and then we will start.
Sicha Beis, what you say?
Sicha Beis, yeah.
Tonight is the Shaimar wedding. It's my shul.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, you came to the shiur.
I'm just the host of the wedding.
You're the host of the place where they're doing.
He rented the shul, that's all.
Yeah.
Rabbi Schapiro.
Yeah. I see.
I'll be in Shari Ezra with few other people listening to the shiur.
Very good, very good.
So it's one phone, few people.
Yeah. Neila echad, neila meya. Okay. Okay, I think we will start. Today we will do a little bit different because since it's Tes Kislev today and tomorrow is Yud Kislev, so we're going to have, after we finish the sicha, we're going to have a Fabrengen. So, Bemis, you could consider the learning of the sicha also part of the Fabrengen, because what's better than learning the sicha of Fabrengen? So, therefore, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to say L'chaim even before we start. No, L'chaim, L'chaim. Second thing, B'chlal, I usually choose the smaller sicha, but this time I chose a longer one because after all, it is not just a regular day. It is Tes Kislev, Yud Kislev, so maybe we could do a little bit more in the sicha, and there's the half of the sicha actually is Chassidus, so it fits the Tes Kislev and Yud Kislev. So we'll start right now. The sicha is on a posik, Parshas Vayetze, obviously, and the posik comes after. It says that Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel. He loved Rachel more than Leah, but Lavan cheated him, so he married Leah, and then he married Rachel. And then the pasuk says, "Vayar Hashem kisnu Leah." Hashem saw that Leah is hated, so therefore, Vayiftach Hasrachma, he opened the womb and she had a child. I just want to mention that Chagav has nothing to do with the sicha. That it doesn't mean he actually hated her. First of all, you're not allowed to hate a yid. But besides that, there's a halacha that if it's a wife that you hate, you're not allowed to live with her. So what's the pshat he hated? So the Rebbe said that means according to the comparison to the level that he loved Rachel, we call it hate, but he didn't hate her. I mean, he didn't love her as much. Anyway, that's just derech hagav. And then the pasuk continues, and that's where we're going to start a sicha. The pasuk continues and says, "Vatahar Leah, Leah became pregnant. Vatelet Bain, she gave birth to a son. Vatikra Shmei Ruvain, she called him Ruvain. Ki Omro, Ki means because. The pasuk is giving a reason why she called him Ruvain. Because Omra, she said, Ki Ro Hashem Ba'oni, Hashem saw my suffering that she's not liked. Ki Ato Yavani Ishi, and now my husband will love me. Now that I gave birth to a son for him, and not only a son, to a firstborn son, now he is going to love me. That's what the pasuk says. That's why she called his name Ruvain. So from that pasuk, Maitik Rashi brings down the Dibra Masla, copies from the pasuk the words Vatikro Shmei Ruvain. The pasuk says she called his name Ruvain. And Mufarash and Rashi explains it like this: Rabbi Seinu Pirshu, our Chachamim explained that. In other words, the Chachamim explained what was the reason why she gave him a name Ruvain. So they explained like this: Omra, she said, Ru'u ma bein bni leben chomi. The word Ruvain is made up of two words. Ru'u, see. See, bein, see a son. So the reason she called him Ruvain, the Chachamim say, because she said, look at my son, and look at the difference between my son and my father-in-law's son. His father or her father-in-law was Yitzchok. Yitzchok's son was Esau. So basically, look at the difference between my son and my father-in-law's son, which is her brother-in-law, actually. Look at the difference. Esau sold the Pchera. He was firstborn, and he has the firstborn rights, and he sold those rights to Yaakov. And this one, this son, she says, didn't sell it. It shows that he held this Pchera in high esteem. Yosef didn't sell it to Yosef, even though it was given to Yosef, but he didn't sell it. It was taken away from him. It doesn't say here that Loshen, but this was taken away, but he didn't sell it to Yosef. Yaakov gave it. But he didn't complain against it. Not only didn't he complain against it, why they gave it to Yosef, he wanted to take him out of the pit. When they threw him in the pit, he was ready to save them. So Rasha gives the reason, and the posik and the words Vatikra Shmei Reuven, she called his name Reuven. Why did she call his name Reuven? For this reason, because Reuven means Reuven, look at my son. The Tzorach Lo, so the Rebbe says we have to understand. Number one, Aleph. Rasha told us a rule, a fundamental rule in his commentary. I only came to explain the simple pshat in the posik. It means Rasha's purpose is to explain something that's not clear, something not understood in the simple meaning of the posik. But if the posik is clear, Rashi doesn't say. Even though there are many Maimor Chazal, many pshatim you could say in all kinds of psukim, Rashi doesn't bring them. He only explains when something is not clear in pshat. Rashi comes to answer it. So therefore, the problem here is what is hard to understand in the simple pshat of the posik? But Rashi has to explain what is not understood in the posik. It's a very simple posik, and Rashi comes to explain it must be something not so clear. That's one kasha. You say to the kasha is even more. Not only does Rashi have no reason to explain because the posik, the pshat is understood. Rashi says that the reason she called him Reuven was because the reason she said look at my son, etc., etc. Not only does Rashi has not the same pshat. What Rashi does say is against the simple pshat. The simple pshat in posik says, why did she call his name Reuven? Vatikra Shmei Reuven. Ki ro Hashem b'oni, because Hashem saw my suffering. Ki ato yivani, my husband will love me. And Rashi comes, it says a different pshat, which is against what it says, a simple pshat. Even though generally, it's only generally, but it's in Gemara. So mainly Rashi brings it from the Gemara. Later the Rebbe say that if you look at the details, it's not exactly like the Gemara, but b'chlol it's like the Gemara. So the Chura you could answer, that's why Rashi says it, because the Gemara says the pshat. But how do you do? We know the rule that Rashi says in his pshat. He repeats it many times. This is the lashon he says. I only came for simple pshat. Sometimes Rashi said, I bring like a different thing that the Chazal say, which is not written simply in the posik. But I only bring it that answer, explain pshat of the posik. Over dibur alifana means as it should fit according to the pshat. It's a posik that needs explanation. That's why he says, so I bring an agoda that will explain, and Ayishav tzorech li b'zalifanav, and the explanation that he brings from the Chazal, from the Chachamim, has to be on the proper eif, meaning, what does eifanav mean? Kana b'seidris yashvus mishlei, that it brings on its proper base, the base of the mikra, shalom mikra of the posik. So even though this is in Gemara, there's not a reason for Rashi to bring it. Because Batsim, if Rashi would bring every Rashi in the Gemara and the Psukim, you'll have hundreds of thousands of things that Rashi doesn't bring. So Rashi just brings Shuta Shlamikra. Shuta Shlamikra, there's nothing to say here. And Rashi said that the Pasuk says why she called his name Reuven. Comes Rashi and adds something which is no need for it. Everything the Pasuk is clear and says something against the Pshat. That's not like the Pshat. There's a different thing that she had in mind when she called it. So it's not understood. There are some Aforshim that say like this. Why does Rashi say what he says? Because looking at the posik, and the reason the posik gives why she called his name Reuven, because she said, Kiro, Hashem ba'oni, Hashem saw my suffering, that is not enough. That only explains part of Reuven's name. Tevas Reu'ushabe. Reuven is made up of Reuven. So if you connect Reuven's name to Ro Hashem B'Oni, so it's only connected to the first word of his name. Avalei Ben Shabei. The word Ben, Reuven, has nothing to do with Re'ei Ro Hashem B'Oni. So they said there must be another reason. She said, that other reason does fit to Reuven. See how great my son was compared to my father-in-law's son. So the words Reuven fits. Because that is hinted in the complete name of Reuven. Both things. So l'chura, maybe that's the reason. That's what the Mepharshim say Rashi, why he adds to the pasuk. But Rashi, you can't say that. Key for like this. Besides the fact, if Rashi is trying to add a new reason why she called him Reuven, in addition to what the Torah says, Rashi should explain. Rashi should explain why is he adding another name? He should have said, Akasha, that the name that's written in the Torah is not enough. Hagam, the Rebbe in Ha'ora 8 says that we know it's the derech of Rashi Bechlal is not to write the kashas. Most shtiklach Rashi, piece of Rashi, he quotes the Lashon of the Pasuk and says the Pshat, doesn't explain what the kasha is, and he expects that we'll figure out why he's saying it. So why do we say here that Rashi, if he meant this, he should have said what the kasha is, why he's saying it. So the Rebbe says that's only when Rashi explains. He says you'll figure out yourself what's the problem. But when he's saying something against the Pasuk, then obviously he should have to explain it. He should have to explain himself. And Rashi didn't. So that makes it hard to say that that's what Rashi meant. But besides that, the pshuta shel mikra ain't a kusha mikra de milsa. In simple pshat, it's no kasha that the word Reuven doesn't fit exactly to the reason, which is Ro Hashem B'Oni, because it only fits the part of the word Reuven. Sharei Ef Shalema, you could say Sho Asi is Beis Nun. You could say that the letters Beis Nun Shebeshem Reuven, in the name Reuven Ramzes La Beis VaNun Shel B'Oni. It does. Ro Hashem B'Oni. B'Oni has a Beis and a Nun. So Ro Hashem is Ru, and the word B'Oni is the Beis and the Nun. Even though the name Reuven, which means in the Beis Nun, it's only a Beis Nun that doesn't have the ayin and doesn't have the yud of B'Oni. And also the nekudas, the vowels, the way you pronounce the word is different than the word B'Oni. B'Oni is one way, and Bein is a different nekudas. So l'chura, maybe that's why you can't say that that is hinted in the name Reuven. So it's not a problem. We find in other places where Rashi says that there's a remez of some inyan in a word, even though it doesn't fit exactly to every word. Where does he say it? He says in Breishis. Rashi says Shamayim. Why is the heaven called Shamayim? Rosh Tevis Somayim. Somayim is it carries water. Shomayim, Rosh Tevis of there is water. Eishumayim, it's made up of fire and water. Avshah Aleph Shasov V'Shal Eish Leisa B'Tevis Shamayim. The Aleph of the word saw and the aleph of the word eish is not there in the word shamayim. The gamnikut hashin shaleishu beifnachad, and the kudos of the shin of eish is not the same as shamayim. So nevertheless, Rashi says that could be hinted. It's called shamayim because of that. It's enough if the eish, the letter shin of the word shamayim. Especially that the shin is the one that's hurt, that's felt the most. So, b'meila, you could say that it's hinted in that. So the same thing you could say here in the word ba'onye. Shoha'esi is beis v'nun ben heimam orgoshes babike. The word beis and the nun is felt in the word ba'onye, even though there's another ayin and yud. But what's felt when you pronounce it is the beis and the nun. So Ru'u is kira. Hashem Be'oni, you feel the Beis Nun, and that's the reason for the name Reuven. We don't care that the other letters are not there. As the Kasha comes back, why does Rashi have to tell us a nupshat in why she called him Reuven? They said that the reason is because what the pasuk, the reason is not hinted in the words, and the Rebbe explained that a pshuta shel mikra, according to Rashi, does fit. So then we're back to the shaila. Why does Rashi say a different reason? We also have to understand, see, before the questions were generally speaking, why does he have to give that reason? Now he's going to, in the reason itself, ask certain kashas. In this reason that Rashi gives, that reason she called him Reuven, saying, look, the difference between my son and the son of my father-in-law, and Esau. So they're like this. Loma Peter Rasha B'Pshat HaKosuk, I'm saying the Gemara. Why does Rasha say, like the Gemara says, but again, Rasha is not limited to what the Gemara says. Rasha says what fits more to Pshat. So why does Rasha say in Derech HaPshat, in Chumash, like the Gemara says, Shahefresh ben Bni leben Chomi hu bazeh, that the difference between my son and my father-in-law's son is sheben Chomi mocher abcheira, bazeh le mocher. The son of my father-in-law sold the bcheira. Bazeh le mocher, and this boy, didn't sell it. In the future, will not sell it. But not only didn't sell it, it was taken away, and he didn't argue. Not only didn't argue, he took him out of the pit. Why does Rasha brings this? Number one, what's the problem with this? Number one, Rasha says that the name had to do with something that happened after many, many years. And the Mele, another problem. It's a nevuah recheka. It's a far nevuah from far. Usually, if a nevuah would be something close, why would she say something, give him a name on something that's going to happen later, which is a nevuah recheka? A third thing, Gimel, in the reason that Rasha gives, that she gave, it brings out something negative about Ruvain. She's trying to bring out the mile of Ruvain. She's mentioning there, Netilas HaBcheira Meruvain Aburchete. Mentions that the Bcheira was taken away from Ruvain. And why was the Taka taken away? Because Ruvain sinned, whatever he did. That's what the Rebbe brings here, where it is, so it mentions that, it reminds us of that. And it reminds us of Yosef Labeid. It reminds also something else negative, that Yosef was thrown into the pit. So why, if Rasha wants to say that the Maila of Ruvain, she could have brought out that the Maila of Ruvain, look at my son, and a Maila in him, something that happened very soon. Ruma ben Bni leben Chomi. Look at the difference, my son and my father-in-law's son, that my father-in-law's son Esau, Gozal, Bechomas, Bechulu, he stole and he robbed, etc., etc. And my son did not steal. Rasha says right a little bit later, and the Pasuk Vayelech Reuven makes a chitim. Reuven went at the time they were cutting the chitim, and he found the doyim. So Rasha says, what's Negeya to tell you when it was? The Pasuk is trying to tell you, even though it's a ksir chitim, so he could have taken more valuable things from the different fields, but he didn't want to take something that's valuable to steal. So he didn't steal. So he could have said, the difference, my son and Esau, Esau stole, my son didn't steal. Then that's Bechlolis. Why did he have to pick the Bcheira? Why couldn't he pick something closer and something which doesn't mention anything that has to do with any negative thing? Beis, another thing. In Rasha's Pshat itself, not understood. Rasha's Pshat is different than the Pshat of the Gemara. The Gemara, it says like this. Also says that she meant to say the difference between my son and the son of my father-in-law of Esau. But the Gemara says it like this. The Ilu ben Chomi, the son of my father-in-law, even though he sold the Bcheira willingly. We learn the Ksiv, like it says, that he asked for Nazida Dashin, to ask for the lentils, and he's ready, he sold it. He sold the Bcheira. Nevertheless, so what kind of complaint can he have if he sold it? He sold it willingly. Look what happened. Vayistem Esav is Yaakov. Esav hated Yaakov. And it says, he said, he told Yitzchak that he tricked me. And he said that when he took the Bcheira, he tricked me into it. He did it willingly, and nevertheless, look what happened. And Yilabuni, but my son, even though the Bcheira was taken of him by force, and the Ksiv, like it says, it brings the Pasuk for it. He wasn't jealous of him. And it calls the Pasuk Ksiv, it says, it means that according to the Gemara, Hahefresh ben Esav LeRuven, what's the difference in Esav and Ruven? Esav sonas Yankiv avla Bcheira shuvralei. Esav hated Yaakov because Yaakov got the Bcheira. Forgav the Medayit Zovnali, even though he sold it to him willingly. Nevertheless, he hated him. Ruven le'akne b'Yosef. Ruven was not jealous of Yosef. That's the way the Gemara makes that what Leah said to show the difference between her son Ruven and Esau. But according to Rasha, which also says that she made a difference. But what? The difference is not concerning whether you were hated him or not, the Hedron, or you didn't hate. Esau did hate him, and Yaakov and Ruven didn't. Our Gemara seems to be saying we're talking about the sale itself. When he says, look at my father-in-law's son, it says that he sold the Bechira. So it looks like the Ika difference between Esav and Ruvain is benegay the sale of the Bechira. Esav mochar Bechira, Esav sold the Bechira. And the other side, Ruvain is Maile, Shalei mochar Bechira. Ruvain didn't sell it. The Gemara doesn't mention it at all when we talk about the Maile of Ruvain, that the Maile that Ruvain did not sell the Bechira. But the Gemara doesn't say. For Rashi is mashmer, because Rashi says, look, Esav sold the Bechira. No, obviously, he did not sell the Bechira. So why does Rashi change from the Gemara? Another thing, Rashi Meisi v'le'ir olav. Rashi like this. He didn't sell the Bechira. That's one thing. Then it continues, and he didn't argue when it was taken away. But not only didn't he argue, didn't he complain, he wanted to take him out of the pit. Just like when it talks the Mila of Ruvain, and he says, oh, how great he was. He mentions a few milas. Number one, he didn't sell the Bechira. Number two, when it was taken away, he didn't complain. Number three, not only he didn't complain, but he tried to save Yosef. So too, when it sees on the cheson, the negativity of Esav, that Esav argued against the Bechira. That's what he brings. He should have said that the other side by Esav is, the Lashon of Rashi is by Esav. He says, all it says here, that he sold the Bechira to Yaakov. So should have also mentioned that he argued against it. The Gemara says that he complained against it. Rashi doesn't bring that. Just says that he sold the Bechira. But he should have read another chesed, just like by Reuven, you have a chesed, a mile, that he didn't argue. By Yosef, you have a chesed, not only that he sold it, which is a problem, he argued against it, like the Gemara says. And he also wanted to kill. The opposite of Reuven. Reuven wanted to save Yosef, who was the one that got his Bechira. And here, he sold his Bechira, argued against, wanted to kill Yaakov. Why doesn't he want to say that? Because the Rebbe says the Pshat and all this is like this. The reason that the Torah said, the Pasuk says clearly, Mefurish, is that Hashem saw my suffering, and now my husband will love me. That's simple. We understand that. It makes a lot of sense. This makes sense that what she was saying. Because Meteva b'nei Adam, it's natural by people, Shehilodas ben leisha, that when a woman, a wife, gives birth to a son, awakens within the husband a feeling of closeness and a feeling of extra love. So that's what and that's Pashta what you said. So the pasuk seems to be very simple, needs no explanation. But in our case, it's not so straight, not so smooth. The Rebbe would say, nicht as a glottic. It's not so smooth. In other words, there is something to look into this. Is this so? Number one, when she said, now my husband will love me. What was the reason she said now? What happened now? We see like this. She was hated. We'll use the word snur as the Torah said. She didn't like her so much. And this happened even after he married her, which is a chiddush, that after you marry a wife, usually you love her more. He still didn't love her so much. He's still snur. In Cain, if you see that even after he married her, he still didn't love her, so you talk and it's possible to gam ato. Maybe now, even though she gave birth to a son, that now you should love her, it'll change. If he didn't change when he married her, how is he so sure it'll change when she has a child? Especially that says in the Nevi'as, Rashi says that the Amois were Nevi'as, so they knew that Rachel was going to have a child too. So why does she think that now that they had a son, and they knew that she's also going to have eventually, now it's going to change so much? Ato, because he had a son. It didn't change before. He married her. It didn't change. Why do you think it changed? So that's one question. Second thing, how did she know that this son, who's the firstborn, will go on the proper path? And she said that this will bring out a love, a feeling of closeness from Yaakov to me. Obviously, he's only if the son is going to be a good son. He's going to go in the right way. How did she know it's going to happen? But maybe he'll grow up and won't be like the Rotzen of Yankiv. Umagam, especially, in this case, there is a real reason why to suspect that Chas v'Sholem, he will not be a proper son. Because B'nai Harishon shel Yitzchak Aviv, which is Esav, the first son of Yitzchak, Yaakov's father, was Esav. So we see the first son was no good. Chen B'nai Harishon shel Ziknei Avram was Yishmael. The first son of the grandfather Avram was Yishmael. Leah Isa Nagosam Beifin Tei. They didn't behave good. Uben Kazeh, a son who's not going to behave good, and not only will not bring a closeness between the father and the mother, it might cause an opposite feeling. So how was he so sure by saying this? Now he will love me. So the main question is, how do you know he will love her because of this? First of all, we see it didn't change really, but especially that we don't know what's going to happen later. Do you hear me? Because it says you're, yeah. That's why Rasha says, Rabbi Seinu Pirshu, that our Rebbes, the Chachomim, added another thing here. And I'll go ahead a little outside before we learn. But the Chachomim added was not a new shot in the Pasuk. The Pasuk says a different reason, explaining the reason of the Pasuk, how it's a good reason. The Pasuk reason is that she felt this is going to make Yaakov love me, but the Kash is, how is she sure? So that Rasha brings what the Chachomim said, and based on what they said, we understand why she felt that by having Reuven, Yaakov is going to love her. Let's learn inside. Look, difference between my son and the son of my father. Esav sold it, and my son is not going to sell it. Hainu means like this. This that she called him Reuven, she called him Reuven for the reason the Torah says, because she said, Hashem saw my suffering, that's hinted in the word Reuven, and now he will love me. But no son, Benny gave her a son. So we said before, how do you know that this is going to make him love this son? So Rasha says that will be Yuvan al Pizeh de Rabbi Seinu Pirshu. Based on what the Chachomim said, we'll understand Pshat what the Pasuk says. Kilula is if not for what the Chachomim said, not clear that he's going to love her now. Because just by she had a son is not enough to make him love, because maybe his son is not going to be good. So Pakos of Ebed Dosheni. So the Pasuk itself tells me you have, because Rashi only explains when something missing in Pshat. There's something missing in Pshat here. The Pasuk itself, Solution of Rashi, the Pasuk says, you got to find something more than what it says. Because based on what it says, the Pasuk is not clear. He's going to love her because she had a son? Who knows? So there must be, the Pasuk itself, the Pshat of the Pasuk tells you, Sheyesh ta mugdim lezeh b'kriya shem Reuven. There must be a reason before what the Pasuk says, why she called him Reuven. Hamavayim avlosa shalaben, which brings out the greatness of the son. And what that is, Rumai ben B'nila Menchomi. Look at my son, the difference between Menchomi. Now, if the Pasuk is hinting also that he's going to be a special son, so now we understand why she said, now he's going to love me. Because she already, it's hinted in the Pasuk, in the name Reuven, something before what she said. She said you're going to be a great son. And now you understand what the Pasuk says. And now we understand why Rashi brings from Leah's words as my loss of Sharufim Binyan Abchera. Concerning Kepchera. She could have brought other Mila. We said before she could have brought the Mila of Reuven over Esav. That he says he didn't steal. Esav stole. Why did she bring up something that has to do with the Bchera? That Zele Mochra, he didn't sell the Bchera. He kept, that Reuven kept the Bchera Choshev. Another Mila. This brings out the Mila of Reuven, which fits to what the Pasuk is saying. Hainu, what is the Pasuk saying? The Mila of Reuven that she was saying is Inyan Lodas Pcher LeYankov. She said, I gave birth now to a first son to Yaakov. Because of that, my husband will love me. But we said before, how is the Shariah that your husband will love? So he says, she gave birth to a firstborn, to Yaakov. And in the Bchera, in the union of being a firstborn, in there is the Mila of Reuven. Zele Mochra, he would not sell the Bchera. He didn't sell it. He wanted to keep it. He better wanted it. That shows that being a firstborn to Yaakov was very special to Reuven. So she said, "Oh, I'm going to have a son that cares really about being the firstborn to Yaakov. That son will make Yaakov happy and love me." Rashi continues. First, he didn't sell it. Then he said, and he didn't argue when it was taken away. Not only didn't he argue, he wanted to take him out of the pit. Why is Rashi add that? That explains even though Yaakov loved Rachel, and really wanted to have children from her. But since Leah had such a great son, how is his greatness? That he was, even though he was the firstborn of Yaakov, and he was very happy. He loved the concept of the being a b'cher. As we see, he didn't sell it. But Yaakov took the b'cher away and gave it to Rachel's son, to Yosef. He didn't argue against Rachel's son. What does that show? He didn't argue because he knew that Yosef is loved by his father. So to have a son that cares so much about his father that he didn't argue against Yaakov giving the b'cher to Yosef. He didn't argue against it, even though he loved it. He didn't sell the b'cher, he loved the b'cher, and Yaakov took it away, gave it to Yosef. He didn't care. He didn't argue because he knew Yaakov wanted it, and Yosef Yaakov loved, so he was happy. And not only that, he wanted to take him out of the pit. And because of the great milas of this son that's born, now for sure my husband will love me. So now we understand what the posik means, that the reason she gave, because now my husband will love me, is because she also said, based on what the Chachamim say, we understand because she said, look at the greatness of my son, the Gabba de Bchera. Now we understand, one of the kashas was, he brings great milas of Reuven. The Gabba Esav. Why doesn't he bring all the chesrenos of Esav? Not only he sold the Bchera, that's one problem. He argued against the Bchera. Wanted to kill him. Just like he brings these milas by Reuven, he should have brought the chesrenos by Esav. Because there's no reason to bring it. All the Rashi wants to say, the Chachamim said that she wanted to bring out the milas of her son, to prove that for sure, because I have such a son, my husband will love me. It's important to go into the chesrenes. She did bring in Esav to show the milas of Reuven. She had to show a parallel. But it's not important to go into all the different chesrenes of Esav. Now we know something else. Why Rashi writes, Rabbi Seinu Pirshu. Our Chachamim, Pirshu means comment, we're mafarish, explain. Okay, simple pshat, the way all the mafarishim learn pshat in Rashi. The Pasuk gives one reason why she called him Reuven. Rashi adds another reason. So Rashi should have said, the Pasuk says this is reason. Omru Rabbi Seinu, our Chachamim said another reason. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says, Pirshu Rabbi Seinu. What does Pirshu mean? Pirshu means they explained. When he brings this second pshat from the Chachamim, he didn't mean to say they go another pshat, a different pshat, not like the Torah says, not like the Pasuk says. Kiyim lefarshe, he's going to explain what the Pasuk says. Lefarshe letaretz haderish bi b'tamakosov, to explain and to answer what the pshat in the Pasuk is. The Pasuk says that she called him that because now my husband will love me. So the kasha is how is it for sure that now he's going to love her? Maybe Rabbi Seinu Pirshu, the Chachamim explained pshat in the Pasuk. She says Ruma ben Nila ben Chomi. It means look at the difference. And we said that such a great son, but Meli, such a great son. Now we understand why she was so sure that he will start loving her. So Rashi bringing something that the kasha was, what's wrong with the Pasuk? This is wrong with the Pasuk. We don't understand it. So Rashi says that is machriach. When something is not understood in the Pasuk, it forces us to say in the Chapshat there must be something else, and we find the Chachamim say this, and that all fits together. Rashi says this is the simple pshita shel mikra of the Pasuk. Then the Rebbe continues, Yena shel teresh b'irish Rashi. Every Rashi has Yena Shal Torah, which means has Chassidus, has in Yonim B'Pnimis HaTorah. So what's there is Yena Shal Torah here. In this Nekuda, B'Negeya, what Rasha says here. Matzino Hefresh ben Kriya Shmeis Hashvotim the Kriya Shemes HaOvis. Avram Yitzchak Yankov. We look in the Torah when it says that the names were given to the Ovis and the names given to the Shvatim. So you find a difference between the names given to the Shvatim and the names called to the Ovis. Number one, the difference is Hashem Eshel Hashvatim Nitnu Aleim Ovis. If you look in the Psukim brings in the Oris, who called the Shvatim by their names? The mothers. Hashem Eshel Ovis. Yitzchak and Yankov. The names of the Ovis and Yitzchak and Yankov, it's not the mothers. See, by Avram, it's not to talk about his mother wasn't shaykhs. But even by Yitzchak and Yaakov, it wasn't the mothers that gave. The Eibishter gave, or the father gave, but not the mothers. That's one difference. Another difference is, by the Shvatim, it says in the Torah, every name has a reason. The Torah gives a reason why this was the name that was given. The names of the Ovis doesn't say clearly a reason in the Torah. Al-Kain Korah that says the name was because of this. Now, Yitzchak, we do find that he was called Yitzchak, but that's all the way Rashi explains that that's the reason for the name. In Chumash, that's what the Rebbe, you have in italics the word, there's no tam mefurish. There is a tam, but it's not clearly in the Torah. Al-Kain Korah, why the name of Avram is Yitzchak, Avram is named, and Yitzchak was named Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it's not clear. So we see two differences. One difference is that who gave the name, and the other difference is that by the Ovis we don't say a reason for the name. The Rebbe explains it by first explaining what's the concept of a name. Yedua, we know it says in Chassidus, different places, a name that you give is not just decided. Like in Derech HaTeva, when you give a name of something, people decide, call him John, call him Jack. I mean, it's a name. But we know that the name that we call Ba'emes, Al Pitera, is not just a made up thing. The name has a connection to the thing itself. That's another thing. It describes what the thing is. It fits to the description and the protim of the thing that's called by that name. The name, it says, is not in relationship to the neshama itself. The neshama, before it comes down into the body, it doesn't have a name. And the neshama exists properly and fine, everything is fine. So the name is not negated to the neshama itself. When the neshama comes down and it's going to give life to the body, Hashem mekasher ha-neshama beguf. The Shem describes what? The connection between the neshama and the guf. V'achayes ha-nimshoches ma-neshama u'machaya ha-guf u'nishreshes b'Hashem. The chayes that comes from the neshama to the guf is nishresh, is rooted in the name. So the name describes the connection of the neshama to the guf. That's what the meaning of a name is. Omnam binyan Hashem guf yodo hamshochas hachayis the guf. The name itself, which we just said, that represents the hamshocha of the chayis into the guf. Yesh beis pchinas. There's two types of names basically. You have kameshu peil klolos haiskasher shal neshama beguf. There's a general name which describes the general connection between the neshama and the guf, but not of each individual thing separately. Balderech shem amin odom, like a moshel. Human beings are called odom because the word odom represents the connection between the neshama to the body of a person. But it's not this person, that person. All people are called odom. Same thing with other things. All animals, all oxen are called sheir. It's a general thing. So that's one thing in the name that's negated to the klolos dika thing. And beis, the second inyan in the name is kameshu babegilu b'chinas siur proti. When it comes already in the form of an individuality, the whole guf of guf levierke. The name also is a name that represents each person in his tzir of what he is. Hashem aproti sheyesh l'kolecha. This individual name. This person is called Avram. This person is called Moshe. So the name Avram has to do with this person. The name Adam has to do with God's human race. And the name Avram, Moshe, all these names have to do with individuality. And these are two separate things. They both shayches to the Hamshocha of the Neshama Beguf. But there's the shayches, one is the Hamshocha klolis of Neshamas into bodies. So the word Adam brings the Neshamas into the bodies. And the different names is every one individual, what his individual thing is. It says in Teira'ir, the Pchines Ovis, Yeshno b'chol zman b'chol odom, that the levels of what the Ovis represent in Avodas Hashem, every person has it, always, all years, all times, all person, every yid. Ki ein kein lo Ovis elo l'shleisha. because Oves are only three. And if you're an Av, Avram is called Oves. And we know children Yarshin from the Oves. All children Yarshin from the Oves. So all the Yidden have to have within themselves whatever the Oves had. And the Oves are only three. The Gemara says, even though the people from Shevet Yehuda was the Av of that Shevet, but you don't call them Av. It gets negay only to Shemnesra. What's negay? But the Lashon is, we don't, Enken Loves El Shleisha. But Inyan, because the Inyan of the Ovis, the Bchin of the Ovis is a Yerusha, an inheritance for all the children, all generations. But other Milas, levels of different Tzadikim, can gain Ashvati. For instance, Shvati, Reuven, Shimon, Levi. If you have a person that doesn't have these Madregas, Ovis, everyone has to have what the Ovis represents. Shem Sheirish Shemokeh Kol Neshamas Yisrael, because that's the root of all Neshamas. Reuven is not the Sheirish of all Neshamas, only of the people from him. So actually, the people from Shevet Reuven have to have in themselves the Madrega, whatever Reuven represents. And the Chassidus, I can learn what Reuven represents and Shimon represents, all the different Madregas. But the Ovis, which represent Ava, Yir, whatever, that's by everybody. From that we understand that the difference between the Ovis and the Shvatim is not only, as we just said, that the level of every one of the Ovis is by every single Yid. But the Shvatim it doesn't have to have the Pchin of every Shevet, only whatever his Shevet. So besides that's the difference between the Ovis and the Shvatim. It means more. Since the Ovis are the Sheirish, the root, the source of all Neshamas, so everyone has the union of the Ovis, not because of his individual Madrege. It's because of his Nakuda Atzmis, which everyone is equal. The fact that the Ovis is the Sheirish of all the Neshamas, and there are differences in every person. So how do we say that the Ovis have to do with every single person? Because if it would have to do with the individual Madrege of every person, so you could say, if it's an individual Madrege, how do we say that the Ovis are the Sheirish of all? Everyone has different Madreges. How could you be the Sheirish of everything? So we say no. The Ovis are the Sheirish of the Madrege of every Yid, in which they're all equal. In the Etzem, they're all equal. In Gilui, in Protim, you're different. So the union of the Ovis has to do with the Etzem of the Yid. The Inyone Ha'atzmi Liyas Chelik Miklolos Ham Yisrael. Since you are part of Klal Yisrael, there's a Nakuda Atzmi that everyone has equally. That's the general thing which all the Yidden are equal. But the Shvatim by Yidden, even when a person has his Shevet, which, let's say, Reuven is the Sheirish of all the people in Shevet Reuven, but it's Hibchinas Haboa B'Ischalkes B'nei Yisrael. It's not a level that has to do with his etzem. Because if it have to do with his etzem, everybody would have it. Since it's only to do with this person or even many people, but it's not with their etzem. That has to do with the chine and the aveda from every single yid separately. So it comes out like this: that the difference in the Ovis and the Shvatim, the union of the Ovis has the shaykhs to the nekuda atzmis of a yid, and the union of the Shvatim has to do with the aveda protis of every single yid. This will explain the difference between the names of the Ovis, names of the Shvatim. Shem, and since we said the names represent the Hamshocha of the Chayas, so we'll understand the difference between the Shvatim and the Ovis. Shem is Ovis. The names of the Ovis, Hamshocha Klolish Yisrael, the names of the Ovis, and we said before the name represents the Hamshocha Chayas. Which Chayas does the name of the Ovis represent? Since the Ovis represent the Etzem, so the names of the Ovis which represent the Chayas which is connected, the Chayas Klolis that every Yid has equally. Every Yid has a Chayas that's nimshach to him as Al-Tzayid, also one of the descendants of Ram Yitzchak Yankov. So that's what the names represent, because the Ovis are shaykhs to the Klal, and their names is the Hamshocha of the Klal. Shemes HaShvatim, Hainu Shamshocha B'B'Chinetziyah Proti. The names of the Shvatim, since the Shvatim are shaykhs to the individuality of the Yidden, the name which is the Chayas of the that represents the Chayas at Nimshach is the Chayas that's Nimshach in a siur Proti, Behesem Lemhusei HaProti Shekolecha, fitting to the individuality of every single person is Aveda. Since the names of the Shvatim are connected to the differences and the individuality of everyone separately, that's why it always says the reason for the name. One of the differences that the Rebbe said is by the Shvatim, we find a reason always for the name. When do we give a reason for the name? When we're saying, why does he have this name? So, and we're saying it has to do with what he is. So we have to give a reason. When we're talking about the Ovis, when the Ovis are the general Nakuda, so you can't say, he is this reason, he is this reason. There are no separate reasons. It's all one Nakuda. So the reason is only given when there's a specific thing, which we have to give a reason why. So the Shvatim represent the individuality, so you have to say, why is this individual? But when there's something for everybody, there's no need to give a reason. This is the way it is. This is the Etzem. It's the second thing that the Shvatim were called by the mothers. What's the difference in a mother and a father? We know there's a difference in the father and the mother in connection to the birth of the child. There's a lot of difference in the father and the mother, but in connection to the birth, we're talking about the birth. The essence, the essential part of the child comes from the father. His galusay, but the revelation, his chalkus, but then the division that it goes into different limbs and different organs and becomes different. That comes by the baby being 9 months in the mother. So the father has to do with the etzeb of the child. The mother has to do with the individual when it already goes into protein. That also is a difference. After the child is born is also different. The connection of the father to the child is more essential. But the Gilui, you see that the person is closer to his mother. But Be'etzem, he's part of the father. And he takes the tchunas of the father. And the Rebbe brings here, he looks in Pirush HaMashnayos, he brings from different places. In Kutasichas, he's Masbir, Menachem Ov, the union of, Aim, whatever. So there it says that Begili, in details, you're more connected to your mother. But Etzem, the connection is to the father. The Locha Dikroim, Chochma Bina. That's why Chochma and Bina are called Ava Aim, father and mother of the Midas. Why father and mother? We learn Chassidus, we know Chochma is the Nekuda of the Seichel. Bina is the development of the Seichel. The Nekuda is one, and from that you develop to many. So Chochma is a Nekuda, that's P'chinas Ha'avshalamidas, that's the father. Then why is it called parents B'chlal? Because if you have Chochma and Bina, it gives birth to emotions. So they're parents. But why Dafke father and mother? Why Chochma father and the mother? Because Chochma is a Nekuda. So that's why it's called the father. Like the father, the Gashmias gives the Nekuda to the child. So the Chochma gives the Nekuda to the Midas. Bina, Yasoga Shebo V'protim. That's the understanding already, which comes into details. That's the aim Shalamidas. The mother to Midas. We find that Bechlal, it says in other places that the man and the woman, Ish is Aleph Yud Shin, Isha is Aleph Shin Hey. They both have the letters Aleph Shin. The man has the Yud and the Isha has the Hey. And that fits to what it says here. Chassidus says that Yud Kevov Ke Yud is Chochmeh, Hey is Bina, and Vov is the 6 Midas, and the second Hey is Malchus. So the man has the Ish, has the Yud and the Kudah, and the Isha has the Hey, which is the Pashtus, which is already going into the Protim. Actually, the Gemara says even more. The Gemara says, Bosik says by a man and a wife, Hashem says, I'll make Eze Kenegdei. I'll give him a help. So the Gemara explains, how does a wife help the husband? It says the husband goes to the store, goes to the market, and buys. He gets the money, he makes a living, buys chitim, buys wheat. And he brings it home. No, go eat the chitim. Klum chitim kaisem, where you're going to choose the chitim. So the wife, she makes it and grinds it and makes it and cooks it and does all the details you have to do. Now he has food. And the Gemara finishes, Nimtze, shehi ma'amidei al raglov, me'iro azeinov. She puts him on his feet and lights him up. So Chassidus says also the same Nekuda, that bringing the chitim, that's the Nekuda, bring it. But then you have all the protim, that's the wife. So we understand about the Shvatim also. Since we said the mothers are the ones that connect to the protim, so the names. So first of all, the ischalkus of that each one has its own tchune, has a connection to the mothers, because the mothers are the ones that develop the protim. Therefore, who called the names, which we said before, the names of the shvatim represent the chayas that's given into the details, the mothers, because they're the ones that deal with the details. That the division of Yidden to different madregas. The Rebbe still have to understand. The reasons given in this parsha for the names given to the shvatim by the mothers, every name there doesn't describe the connection of the name to the child. Because we're saying now that the mothers gave the name because the children are protim and the mothers give the protim, but their names don't represent. The connection, the names show the mother's connection to this name. Take Lamoshel Ruvain. She said, "Kiro Hashem ba'oni." Hashem saw my suffering. Now he's going to help me. It's all herself. By Shimon, Kishom Hashem Kisnu Anechi. Hashem heard I'm hated. He gave me another son. So it's all about herself. According to the beer, we're saying here, should have been something that has to do with the children, because the children are the protim that were dealing her here, that the difference of the names of the shvatim. Rasha explains in the first name of Ruvain. Here explains it clearly. Since it's by the first, we assume it's by the rest also. What? Rasha says, Pirsha Rabbi Seinu, that our Rebbe explained. Omro, she said, Ruma ben Bnila ben Chomi, that what was the name Ruvain? Something has to do with the child. Look at the difference between my child and my father-in-law's child. That the connection of the name is not only to the mother. It's to the son himself. So that's what Asher wants to show, that the name has to do with the son. And that's why the mothers gave it, and that's the Torah tells us the reasons. So this is explained so far, the Pshuto Shlomik and the initial Torah. According to this, we can give a remes to something else. Since we said that the whole thing here, which is in our parsha, has to do with the etzem, the nekudah, and then you have the ispashtus, so it has to do with something else also. Hashayches, the parshas Vayetze letes Kislev, the connection of parsha Vayetze to Tes Kislev, which is the Yom Haledes, Yom Elul Shadmur and Tzoyi, the birthday and the yahrzeit, the Yom Elul from the Mittel Rebbe. Shechol Kama Pomim B'Shvur the Parsha Vayetze. Many times it's actually the week of Vayetze, like this year. Sometimes it's close to Vayetze, like in that year when the sicha came out. It's after Shabbos Vayetze, but we know the whole week gets the bracha from Shabbos. So if it's in the next week, it's still connected to Vayetze. So that's connected to what we said till now. Key, because we know the difference it says between the Alter Rebbe and the Mittel Rebbe. We know when we count this, the Rabbeim with the Sfiras, the Alter Rebbe is called Sfiras HaChochmeh, the Mittel Rebbe is Sfiras HaBinah. To go into this, it's not so clear. We know the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid are known to be Keser. Baal Shem Tov is Atik, and the Magid is Arich. And the Alter Rebbe is Chochmeh, the Mittel Rebbe is Binah. It's Tzaddik is Das. And from there on, it's not so clear. We know that the Rebbe Rashav is Heid, the Friedrich Rebbe is Yisei, the Rebbe is Malchus. But what happened to the ones in between? From Das, Chesed, Vura. So the Rebbe once spoke about it different. It's not so clear. But one thing is clear, written in the Rabbeim, say that Alter Rebbe is Chochmeh and the Mittel Rebbe is Binah. Chochmeh, we know, like we said before, is P'chinas Nekudah. Admor Azokun is Sfiras HaBinah. Alter Rebbe is Sfiras HaBinah. And what's Binah? K'meisha Agilui Bo B'chinas Proti, so Mispashtas, that the Etzem is Mispashat, gets spread out and gets in more, all the details you get there. And that happened by the Mittel Rebbe. Okay, Dua, Shal Yodei, you know that through the Mittel Rebbe, Bo Teres Achsidus Le'Gilui Rav became to a great Gilui, Ube'efn Shal Ispashtas V'Yisrachvus, in the form of being spread out and broad, which we call Recheves Hanor Binah. By Binah it says Recheves Hanor. See, Chochmah is like a Nekudah, so it's like a Mayon. And from there you have a Nor, a river, which gets spread out. And that's Binah. And that's what the Udugmas Inyan Kriya Shemas HaShvatim. But this is like the Shvatim who call the name Piprotim. That's what the Mittel Rebbe is. The Alter Rebbe, and in his Torah, so in the other sicha, the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe said his Torah in the form of Nekudas. Nekuda. And the middle Rebbe came and was put into more protein, not Nekudas. Was the bine, and because of bine, it nase shevet loshen amshochet. The word shevet also means amshochet. If it's very israchvis, it goes very far. Something that's very nekuda doesn't spread, doesn't go away so far. Something that's very wide, a lot of water that spreads, and it goes all the way down, which means that bringing chassidus down all the way into the lower levels. So we know that this was what the Mittel Rebbe wanted. We know the Pisgam, the word that the Mittel Rebbe said, he wanted, and two young light will meet. What should be their discussion? It means basically what should be their dvarim b'teilim, not what to be learn about. You learn chassidus, you learn not tikvarich. But when they speak stammer, you meet a friend. Hello, how are you? What's tutzach? So normally you say "Vastutzach," and the guy tells you, "Well, I'm making money. I'm not making money. I'm this." He wanted a discussion. The simple discussion should be arich v'atik. So what he's really saying here, that where did the real chutza start? By the Mittel Rebbe. So we know that a lot of dargis. The Baal Shem Tov started. He puts him chutza by the Magid, then by the Alter Rebbe, and then after Peterburg by the Alter Rebbe Avade, and then here he says by the Mittel Rebbe was even further. By the Zeh Zeichen the Ka'osamar the Malka Mashiach will be Zeichen the coming of Mashiach Kodev Mamish. And that's like a hemshech to what the Mittel Rebbe did. So this is the part of the sicha that we're learning. Now, I don't know if Rabbi Frankfurter is on. We made up that now, right after the sicha, now you should see for a few minutes only a video. Oh, here you are, a video of the Rebbe to bring us into, so to speak, in a mode of fabringen. The Shtetzach is not going to last like people think for hours, but still a mode of fabringen of test kislev, yud kislev, which is something that has to be done. See, sometimes there are things that you got to do. Sometimes things, nothing you got to do. Is it possible not to do it? You can't have it, not if I bring it. Corona, Maisa, has given nature, so we'll have to find. So now I think we'll continue. So we'll start with the video from the Rebbe, and then I'll continue. And if anybody else wants to say something, not on the Cholakov, but at Rebbe, someone should say something else if it's only possible.
Kislev. His son, Rabbi Dov Ber of Lubavitch, was also arrested on charges of treason. The 10th of Kislev marks the Mittler Rebbe's liberation.
Wie bald am steht, ist in der Gejule von der Mittler Rebbe, ist demol das der Schar, durch welchen zu werden nicht alle, למטה למילה, במילא echt מובן, דו למטה כל העניונים, ist der Fall verstandig, dass der Zman HaMasim reden in der Meile, was sie da in der Gejule, legabe Gejule Orishen, wo das die Gejule von dem Alten reden, und das die Gejule von dem Mieten reden. Wie gesagt, früher, hat der Meister von den Mittleren ist gewählt noch der Ruf, wie man da eingenommen, zähnliche Thesen der Iden in dem Limut von Teres von meine Sicha in der Nähe von Jafutze Chutze. Wie der Mittlere beschreibt die Hagdome, Lekamo Misforov, wo seinen Ogedru geworden, Bechayov al Jode noch jedem am meisten. Was er sich da damals aufgetan, der Jafutze meine Secha Chutzo, mit einem mehredicken Sturm, sei der Jafutze, der Apotze, und sei der Sturm, dass der Gericht in Chutzo, und sei der Sturm, aber dort gehad, die Majonis Hatzma. Okay, mit du berkam Pomem nicht mir sagt Jafutzo. Nee, ha Majonis Chutzo, nur die Majonis allein kommen an den Chutzo. Und nachfall Pikein, kann sein, Asami Cheshech, was wird nicht nispol, a viele Parasami Neir, und noch mehr als Neir, wo die Unione ist, wie er putze meine Seche Chutza, soll Luft an der Leilo Kayem Joir, und viel durch Bepe, was wird am meisten Bepe. Und wir darf hoffen, die ganze Stadlos, Beruchnis, kedei soll der noch herabkommen, der Atzloche in die Stadlos Begashmius, was hat gebracht der noch zu der Gejule. Beweis dass Apacheshech Achi Godel noch mehr, wie sie gewähnt früher, wo der Funne verstandig, als sie kommt durch Acheshech Achi Godel, und mit dem Nazeach, es der Yisser mit der Acheshech, wie bald hat der Acheshech gegrößer, in der Yisser neue Rechet gegrößer. Wo da sieht man in der Chsidis von der mittleren Reben, legabe der Chsidis von dem alten Reben. Was afal pi, was mi hu selbe eise hu, auf hereinlassen sich und suchen die Juken wie Chiluken wie Chulu. Und befragt nachher, dass sie Memale bekämen mit dem Dik auf Memale und Bnei Pchere, mit der alle in Jonim Haalis war Flois, es ist ja nur der Wort von dem Reben nicht Moseden, als mir konnte von Aris bringen. A Jinyan in Jira Shamayim oder Tedu und Mitzveseo, I demot es a viel in Tanje, komme echt mit Daik sein, lefi sich Leno Hadal. Ke ja du der Brief sein, war schon gedruckt geworden und ist Parsim geworden wie Chul. Was mit Setzer bepasst es am Lernen dem alten Rebbe am Maimer. Und dann noch lernt den mittleren Rebbe am Maimer, kommst zu der Linie von Rechevis Hanor, von Archovas Habiur, והעוונה והסוגה, bis als wird der Yichud Niflo noch mehr, wie viel gewinnt der Yichud Niflo, wird gelernt im alten Rebbes Maimer bifnei Asme. Wenn man sieht, was bepasst, sagt dort die Maimorim von dem alten Rebben, wie sie seinen geschrieben, in sein Signe. Weil Jode oder durch die, was das Manier gewinnt verschrieben, leid sein Leshene Hazoho, danach dort derselbe Linie wie geschrieben durch den mittleren Rebben, und wir sehen damals am Bakumgar Avone Vasoge, שלei בערך הטיפרה, wie mir hat der Avona Vasoge, wie mir lernen den alten Rebbes Maimer, bis ich meine hu. Und wie mir verbindet das all derech Achiluk, am lernt a Inyen Mischne, was leschene Ksora, und dann noch lernt in demselben Minyan, den Biur, wer wird nicht bei, wenn nicht sparet, wenn nicht bei, in der Sugya Hasagmore, wer der Avone Vasoge in dem Loschen Kotze, von der Mischne, Gorschelei Bejerach, wo das ist der Chechet, al derech Achiluk von Chochme und Bino, was al derech der Chechet, jedur der Rishime, von dem Rebbe Nesiderein, und von Rebbe dem Schwer, der alte Rebbe und der mittlere Rebbe, das bedeutet von Chochme und Bino. Was koomur, al das ist der Schar, wo demult nimmt man neche de Chochme in a tiefer Neifen.
Okay, so there's really nothing more that we have to add. We just heard from the Rebbe, and I can finish us off with the Chochmah Bina that we just learned in the sicha. So the first thing is, I think everyone should say L'chaim, Chaim, L'chaim, and we should take and connect to what Teskis
Chaim.
L'chaim. Want to sing a lied?
I have the kapara on the video for bringing, if you want that.
Yeah, Let's sing. Well, I think we should all try to sing together. We'll try, but here, if you have there, then it's.
We'll sing it with the video.
We'll sing with the video.
Okay,
We'll sing it. Yeah, that's the best hachana to talk, whatever. It's a video or audio? Oh.
Leid sein Leshene Hazohol, danach dort derselbe Linie wie geschrieben durch den mittleren Reben, und wir sehen damals am Bakumgar Avone Vassoge in dem Loschen Kotze von
Nikava yeah,
Ich will das machen, ein Bruch achrena und machen ein Bruch achrena.
Was darf machen? Broche de Scheine. Now make a Broche de Scheine and say L'chaim.
Chaim, Chaim.
Chaim the Broche. Chaim, L'chaim. Okay, Sud Kislev, Test Kislev, Yud Kislev connected to the Mittel Rebbe. So it's, there are two things. Number one, there are certain heroes and certain things that we have to take out from Test Kislev, Yud Kislev that we have to learn. That's the whole idea of Fabrengen. The person who speaks is going to shred. It's just so you need some guy to but it's each one has to take out something, and then and another thing is also a time that amongst ourselves we talk about the Mittel Rebbe, talk about the godless of the Mittel Rebbe, because everyone knows, all Chassidim know the godless of the Mittel Rebbe, but it's always kedai to review and to think that brings out to understand the hafloah, the greatness, as much as it's possible for a human being like us to understand. So I think the first thing I would like to say is to mention a few things in the Gay, the Mittel Rebbe, which everyone knows, but talk about it with the Mittel Rebbe. Know the Mittel Rebbe, it's that Chassidus was the greatest, but in Sipurim Niroyim, there's Sefer Sipurim Niroyim written by Rabbi Yankel Kadaner. Yankel Kadaner was a Chassid of the Mittel Rebbe, Chassid that's a Matzetik. And he wrote the Sipurim Niroyim, and he wrote the den. So it's not like stories that people now write down that they heard from somebody who heard from somebody about the Baal Shem Tov story. He wrote it down by Itib Bisman, and he only wrote stories that he was aid to or he heard from the Bala Maisa. So he writes there, Benegeya, the Mittel Rebbe, that people think, Benegeya, the Mittel Rebbe, that in Chassidus he was, the top. I mean, but in Nigle, the Mittel Rebbe was not so great. But he says there that the learning of the Mittel Rebbe, the Hasmoda, was so great, Pasha the Nigle. He says there was once that Nechemia the Brovner and the Filovich, the different Rabbonim that were talking together with the Chaim Avram, the Maril, the Alter Rebbe's brother, and they were talking in Nigle and they were fighting and discussing and they couldn't come to something they couldn't understand. And they said, let's ask the Rebbe. They went to the Mittel Rebbe on the spot. The Mittel Rebbe told them, Pasha the Pshat in Nigle, that they went out of the Kalim. They said this is Mamish. His learning in Nigla was, he tells the story there that the Mittel Rebbe is once on a trip, and it takes some time, and you're busy for whatever he did in Askonas, whatever he did. And on the way back, he Batsim hasn't eaten the whole day, but he told the driver to drive very fast. The wagon driver was driving, and he said, drive fast. And what happened in the middle? He drove so fast that the horse died. And he told him to continue, they changed it and to continue. And they, in other words, the way, I don't know if he writes it, but the way I remember, they were thinking maybe he doesn't feel good and he wants to come home. And the Pale finally got to Lubavitch and they got into the house. He ran out of the wagon and he was wearing his coat, his winter heavy fur coat. He jumped out of the wagon, ran into the house, didn't even take off his coat. He ran over to the shafer, took out a Gemara, and stood a whole night till the morning learning Gemara. In other words, since in this way he was traveling, he didn't have a chance, obviously, to learn Gemara, because he was involved in Askonis. He couldn't wait, Pasha, the Gaguim that he had, Pasha, to learn, and he came and he ran down and he learned Gemara whole night. So he says that the Nigla, they say that the Mittel Rebbe, it's written already in these, everyone going to say is written in the Svarim of the stories, that the Mittel Rebbe once asked his Shamish, his Gabbai, can you tell me, was sagt die Welt auf mir? What is that? What do they say? So he said, they want to know the truth? I'll tell you the truth. They say, they say that in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, this year the greatest. But in Nigle, not so. So he said to him, you should know, if I would give myself over to Nigla 1 year, just Nigla, ain't gone kamesi. Nigla, but he was more in Chassidus. But he says, but otherwise, even his Ge'enes, they say that the Ragachova said, I saw someplace written differently, but I heard from somebody who says he heard it closer to the Ragachova that said, he once spoke about the Alter Rebbe, greatness of the Alter Rebbe. We know the Ragachova, the Alter Rebbe. But then they asked him, what he said, the Mittel Rebbe? So he said that I can't say much because there's not much Nigla written, even though there is a little bit of Nigla Piskidin for the Mittel Rebbe, but not much. And even that, I don't know if he had it, this was printed later. But he said, but from the Chassidus that he says, that you see that he must have had in his head arteries the thickness of a finger for saying such deep svaras. I heard from somebody else that he said it on the Alter Rebbe from his Kunter Sachren, but I heard from somebody that he said it on the Mittel Rebbe. And he said he can't say because it's Nigla, but still you could see from the Chassidus. I remember the Rebbe told over once, actually, it's interesting to tell over Bechlal, this was Shabbos Pashas Vayetze Yud Kislev Tovshin Chof Beis. And I start making a cheshbon how long ago that is. It's almost 60 years, 59 years ago. Tovshin Chof Beis. I'm still a very young bucket. But certain things you remember. And this Fabrengen, I remember it was, no one knew if it was going to be a Fabrengen or not. Like those times, the only time they knew a Fabrengen is going to be Shabbos and Vorchem. And then every time they waited, one of the simony was the Gabbai would announce after davening Mustaf, if he would announce when Mincha is, then we know there's not a Fabrengen. But if the Rebbe started walking without waiting for the announcement, you knew there's anyway. So there was Fabrengen, and it's the middle of the winter, so how late can it be? Now by a regular Fabrengen, what was those years especially, Fabrengen lasted about 2 hours. But the from 1:30 was the Fabrengen until 3:30 Berech. In the Fabrengen, many times, usually there was a Maimer in the Fabrengen, and 2 sichas, 3 sichas. But 1 Maimer and 3 sichas. This Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, he told over that the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe was involved, his whole Inyan was Chassidus, ad kedikach, that there would be even sometimes a Shabbos that he would say Chassidus 3 times. 3 times he would say Chassidus in one Shabbos. And this Fabrengen of Shabbos Pashas Vayetze Tovshin Chof Beis, the Rebbe said 3 Maimorim. There's 3 Maimorim with the Nigun of a Maimer. So there were 2 sichas and 3 Maimorim. Always there's 1 Maimer and 3 sichas, something like that. It was Mam Chappelle. I remember when we saw, I remember standing there, I remember like now, standing there, and the Rebbe all of a sudden say another Maimer. And then later a 3rd Maimer. It was Ad Kedikach, that the Rebbe said, when he said then, that the Mittel Rebbe in one Fabrengen said, 1 Shabbos said 3 Maimorim, he said, and sometimes he would say a Maimer Fartog. Fira Zege Fartog. So after the Rebbe said the 3 Maimorim, we were thinking maybe, just like the Rebbe copied the Mittel Rebbe and said 3 Maimorim this Shabbos, maybe Fartog, the Rebbe is going to say a Maimer. So we came to 770, Fira Zege Fartog. Then Als Bochrim came to, the Rebbe didn't come. But I'm saying, but it was. So that Fabrengen, leider, there's not really a hanocha from that Fabrengen. There are a few words from there, a few stories that the Rebbe told them from that Fabrengen. So you can look it up. But one of the things, like I was saying, about Benigla, the Rebbe said that the Tzemach Tzedek said on the Mittel Rebbe. And what happened was, the Tzemach Tzedek didn't want to accept the Messias. And he said, why? It'll take me away time from learning. So they said to the Tzemach Tzedek, and your father-in-law, the Mittel Rebbe, did accept the Messias, and he didn't, like it wasn't bothering him that it didn't take away time from learning. So he said, was gleicht mir zu mein Schwer? How are you comparing me? The Schwer was so much involved that when he came into the shul in Lubavitch, and he walked from one wall, I remember the Lashon said, von einem Wand zum zweiten, hat durchgetracht, a ganze Mesichte. In his mind, he thought a whole Mesichte in Gemara from the wall. And I remember the Rebbe even added, that no, it's not there, but I remember the Rebbe said, and those that were in Lubavitch know that the shul was not that big. The shul, and still, when he went from one wall to the other, it had durchgetracht, a ganze Mesichte. So that's the Mittel Rebbe in Nigla. But the Mittler Rebbe in Chassidus, he's based on the Tzemach Tzedek said that if you will cut his finger, it won't have blood. What will happen is you will see Chassidus instead of that. And this inyan started all the way from when he was still a kid. When he was a kid, it was some of all their famous Vertlach. You don't find so many Vertlach. I mean, Chassidische Tief Inyanim from any of the Rabbeim when they were kids, like you find by the Mittler Rebbe. The famous one, Lamoshel Atzabeim Kesef Azov, the famous word when he saw some of the elder Chassidim were a little bit sad. The Parnasa wasn't going, and he was a kid, and he saw them standing there in Ganei Natachton going to Yechidus. So he told them, Atzabeim Kesef Azov, Atzabeim Yitaicht, Loshen Atzvus. Your Atzvus comes from Kesef Azov. Things like that. This famous story with the Piafkis that he heard from the doctor in the month of Elul. The doctors used to prepare the Piafkis. Piafkis were these leeches that they used to use to draw blood when they had to draw blood from somebody. And they used to collect it before Elul, because later on in the winter you couldn't get them because they would go into hiding. So he overheard a doctor say, it's tief in Elul, but noch nicht zugekriegt Piafkis. We didn't prepare the Piafkis. So when he came over and told some of the Chassidim that for they were sure that he heard it from the Alter Rebbe. He's given a ganze chkire, what is pshat and the whole thing. Later they found out that the Alter Rebbe didn't say he heard it from the doctor. And then the Alter Rebbe actually commented that what we have to work hard on, our children, that comes automatically by us to look at everything in Gashmias that should be a Nero and Aveda, we have to work on it. And our children, the middle of him, it's a Pasha Zach, he heard this and he told it to them. Anyway, that Russian in Kippur, that's I said it much. That Russian, it was the tears were there so much based on this. I'm saying it's often the Mittler Rebbe when he was a child. Certainly later, when he was a very young, the Alter Rebbe already appointed him as the
Good.
And not only that, the Rebbe told that Farbringen of Pasha Vayetz, the Tovshin Chov Beis, that when Chassidim used to come to the Alter Rebbe to ask for a eitzah in Gashmias, he would answer. If they would have eitzah in Ruchnias, he would send them to his son, to the Mittler Rebbe. As got very young, he sent it to him. And what the Mittler Rebbe would do, the Rebbe said he would go into his father before Yechidus and get from him, I don't know, smicha, or get from him an issue that tonight he's going to be able to be mechavim to the truth. Every night before he would go in. Once somebody came to him and asked him for an eighth or something, so the Mittler Rebbe said to him, I can't help you because the one you came to hear from or see is not here today. Because the Alter Rebbe wasn't there. So he couldn't get from the Alter Rebbe that confirmation for that. But I'm just trying to bring out that this was what the Mittler Rebbe is from then. So the Mittler Rebbe is known mitzad the inyan of Chassidus. And as we heard from the Rebbe, we just learned the sicha, that's the inyan of Bine in Chassidus. So besides the greatness is that's a level in Afotzas Hamayones that he was in Marchiv Dinyan of Chassidus. There are also, maybe we'll get to that a little later, but there are meifsim that are told of the Mittler Rebbe. Now, like I said, in Sipurim Neiroim, in that sefer, by the way, is a sefer that the Rebbe gave, the Friedrich Rebbe gave the Rebbe during the Rebbe Sheva Brachas to read. And he told him, during Sheva Brachas is not really a time when you really could sit down and learn the Iyun, so he told him to read the Sefer Sipurim Neroyim. So there he goes, a whole bunch of stories about the Alter Rebbe. Then he has also all kinds of stories about the Mittler Rebbe, showing the godless of the Mittler Rebbe. And he said that even one of the stories says he was once traveling with the Mittler Rebbe, if I remember correctly. He was traveling with the Mittler Rebbe, and he came to the Chasanya, and the Mittler Rebbe was at Yechidus, whatever. And the Balabosta from the house prepared for him the food. And the Mishores was after the Yechidus was supposed to take the pot of food and serve the Mittler Rebbe. In the morning, he says he saw the lady, Mamish, crying. He said, what's happened? So she said, we had the schus that the Rebbe is in our house. And what I did was, I was machshel him in eating treifas. What do you mean? She said there was two pots on the fire or wherever. One was for the Rebbe and one was for the Goye. The Goyish lady, that cleaning lady, or whatever you call her. By mistake, it got mixed up, and the part of treifa food went to the Rebbe. So I was machshel the Rebbe with treifas. He came to the Mishoris, and the Mishoris started laughing. He said, "What are you laughing? It's not a simple thing." I'll tell you what happened. After the Rebbe finished, and I served him the food, the Rebbe took the soup, I think, and I remember exactly, took with a spoon and started looking. He didn't want to eat it. And he said he's not going to eat it. And the Rebbe didn't eat the whole day. The Rebbe gave it back, and he said, and the Rebbe told me, and you also shouldn't eat it. You also shouldn't eat it. So the Rebbe didn't eat it. Go, and he said, go look. And he showed him that pot that was set there was full. No one touched it. So he said, you see from here that the Yunus it's at the Koloven. But when they asked the Mittel Rebbe, they said, oh, Rabbi Mephis, there's nicht Mephis. So Mephis, he said, when I started taking the spoon, so what happened was, my mind came in Yonim of Hilchas Treifes. So I was thinking, well, why is Hilchas Treifes reingefallen in the cup now? So that gave me an understanding. I said not to eat. But he brings out from this, a lot of things he says there, the Mittel Rebbe's Kapedis, that we know, the Mittel Rebbe's Kapedis. There was a guy who told him, the Rank Gana writes, there was a guy who told him, he said, he heard it from the guy, he was Chavrusa of the Mittel Rebbe. Chavrusa. But then they went their ways. He went whatever he did, and the Mittel Rebbe stayed. Mittel Rebbe learned. And this was all before the Nesias of the Mittel Rebbe, time of the Alter Rebbe. He came, then he once came to Lubavitch. Not to Lubavitch, Ladi, whatever it was, he came. And he went in to see his friend. And he saw his friend was learning Gemara. He saw the Mittel Rebbe learning Gemara. So he saw him learning Gemara. And he was on Daf Yud, I think, or something like that. In the beginning of the Masechta, whichever, I don't know which Masechta. He came in the next day, he came again in, he saw him holding a Daf Mem. So he said to him, it's possible you learned so much. We used to learn together, we never learned like this so much. And the Mittel Rebbe didn't answer. When he went home, I think something happened, the child got sick or something happened to him. And he came running to the Rebbe, to the Alter Rebbe. And he's afraid maybe something he said, maybe there's some kapeda of the Alter Rebbe or something. Nothing. Then the Alter Rebbe says to him, maybe you said something not bekovedik to my son, to the Mittel Rebbe. So no, he's a best friend of mine. Why would I insult him? Why would I do anything? But when he went out, he reminded himself that, yeah, this story that he made like a joke of his learning. So he ran to the Mittel Rebbe and he told him, and the Mittel Rebbe said, yes, and like he bothered him, why are you? And he asked him, Mechila, whatever. So the Mittel Rebbe's Kapeda, even then, before the Nesias was. So he says, I mean, if you read it, it's very interesting. The Mittel Rebbe is buried in Nezhin. He says in Nezhin, very often they had a magefa, they had a virus, but they laughed it off. They didn't care about it. So they said, well, why? It's a serious thing. So they told him, I guess it's not serious. The moment someone gets it, you go to the tziyad, you go to the ale of the Rebbe, of the Mittel Rebbe, and everything goes away. So this is, I think other stories that he says about the godless of the Mittel Rebbe. So that's one thing to know about the Mittel Rebbe. Then we have since we're talking about Teskislev, which is the Meledis and the Yortzeit, so the Istalkas of the Mittel Rebbe, which everyone knows, and just could I to mention that the Tzemach Tzedek said that such a Istalkas wasn't there from the Rashbi's time. Besides that, by that Tzemach Tzedek was the Mittel Rebbe was the same day of his Meledis, which the time of the Chumash and those days, it happened by every tzaddik, that they passed away on the day of their Meledis. But later, that's not. For some reason, even though the idea fits, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mamalish Nefesh Shel Tzaddikim fits now too for a tzaddik, but it's not begilui for some reason. Not by the Mittel Rebbe, this was mamish begilui. That's one thing. But besides that, the last word that he said was the word Chaim, and by the Rashbi it says that he finished his neshama left him when he said the word Chaim. So it's mamish the same thing. And the way it says in Beis Rebbe all about the stalkers of the Mittel Rebbe, that the Mittel Rebbe was already like mamish kemat geises, and one doctor says to the other doctor, I'll show you something. I'll give him permission to say chassidus, you'll see what will happen. So he walked over, whispered to him that he asked permission to say Chassidus. He got up and he became mamish like, because that was his whole life. Anyway, so that's Benegay the Mittel Rebbe. The Iker Rebbe was in the Gay Tzun, the Benegay the Mittel Rebbe is, his inyan was Chassidus, and the Mittel Rebbe said, it's a gewunschen, like we've just learned in the sicha, it's a gewunschen that when two young light meet, what should be the discussion? Here the Rebbe said the Lashon Atik v'Arich. That's one Lashon, some places, the same idea, it says that's a gewunschen, you should speak about Yichud Ilah, Yichud Tator. They say that the Rebbe once, when he quoted this word to the Mittel Rebbe, he said, when ich wünsch sag, als in Geleit treffen sag, they should talk about how to be Mekar of another Yid, or about somebody. Oh man, I don't know the Lashon, but it's the same idea. But the word from, but the Mittel Rebbe, the Iker was Chassidus. And the stress of Chassidus, Chassidim, the matzav of Chassidim in the time of the Mittel Rebbe, mitzad learning Chassidus, was top, more than in the time of the Alter Rebbe, more than the time before. It was even known, the Mittel Rebbe's Jungeleit. And these are young people, they're not the elder Chassidim. The Mittel Rebbe's Jungeleit were in a high madrege, and Chassidim used to say that in the time of the Mittel Rebbe, they didn't need Mashiach. And then the Kuda was, why? Because the inyan of Mashiach is v'niglo kved Hashem v'ro kol boser yachdav kipi Hashem tibir. The inyan of Mashiach is Giloy Alikus. They were so much involved in Chassidus that they had Giloy Alikus. Learning Chassidus and understanding Chassidus is Giloy Alikus. I'm going to explain it just for a second. People think Giloy Alikus means shine tarop a light. So Eir and Sof, no, everyone knows Lakus is Eir and Sof. So there's a certain light that comes down in the Welt, and it's Eir and Sof. So a person by somebody who's doing Giloy Eir and Sof, it means that if he has some kind of feelings, it comes down there, that's not the Pshat Giloy Eir and Sof. Giloy Lakus means mentioned in his mind the truth of the emeskite of the Eibishter, the fact that Ein Eid Milvade, and there's nothing but mitanemes, not just words, lip service, Ein Eid Milvade. Yeah, we all say Ein Eid Milvade, nothing Eibishter. There's nothing but Eibishter, but something, only a little bit, only me and Eibishter. But so when select Tzachot mitanemes, that you really, really, really understand and feel Ein Eid Milvade, that's Giloy Lakus. So when it says Mashiach will come, that means everybody in the world, and not only people, Kol Bosar, will recognize the Emeskat of Eibishter. In the time of the Mittel Rebbe, the Chassidim were in such a madrege that they pushed everyone, those that were the real Chassidim, recognized the Emeskat of Lakus. So the word was that they didn't need Mashiach. Avada, that's not Kipshute, they didn't need Mashiach. States of Mashiach will come and be different, and not only that, the Welt needs Mashiach, and the Tachas HaKavon needs Mashiach. So, but it's an expression. The expression is that by them, was Tachuftum and Mashiach will come, they had it, Mizgelegen Chassidus, and they learned it, Mamash, this was by them, and they take had Giloy Lakus. Or something like Giloy Anasham. I think I mentioned once, another Farbring is that once the Avdichever came to the Alter Rebbe, and he came with a Chassid, and he told the Alter Rebbe, this Chassid of mine has Giloy Leo. And the B'dome Kletzker was standing on the side, Davenik Shmonesre, holding by Sim Sholem, and the Alter Rebbe said to Badichever, when their Chassid, Bishas is holding by Sim Sholem, is laughing at his Giloy Leo. And the Chassidim who chazed over, they heard it from Rav Shmuel Greinem in Lubavitch. I heard it from all the Chassidim. All the Chassidim used to tell that story. That they heard it from Rav Peretz. So from Rav Shmuel Greinem, I heard from Rav Peretz, I heard from Rabbi Jacobson and they all. And Rav Shmuel Greinem was Masbir. What's Giloy Leo? Giloy Leo is a Giloy L'mayla. Leo comes to you fine, and you have to be zeicha for it. It's not so poshut. You have to be zeicha for it. But when you have Giloy Aneshama, so what's Giloy Leo? Giloy Leo is only a schus. There are many stories of people who, because of a certain act that they did, were zeicha to Giloy Leo. Poshut the people, they weren't palamadrege, but because they did some serious nefesh act. Famous stories, guy was not even normal. And he did something and he had Giloy Leo. Giloy Lakus is not a Giloy that you're zeicha to a Giloy. Giloy is a madrege that you recognize the truth. So that's, some places we call it Giloy Neshama, because the Neshama is Megala Lakus. So the way they said over it, Shmuel Greinem said, V'shas estate Sim Sholem, he's laughing at this Giloy Leo, because he has Giloy Neshama, which is Giloy Lakus. And the Chassidim in the Mittel Rebbe, Poshet, had what we say, Giloy Lakus, because they were involved in Chassidus constantly. So the union of the Mittel Rebbe, and we talk about the Mittel Rebbe, and every time there's a certain sibbe for a fabrengen or talk, it has to be that nakuda. See, when it comes to Lauf Nissen, Gimel Tammuz, we talk about the Rebbe, and there's all these inyanim, but all these inyanim, all the Rabbeim are part of what we have to do. It all has to go through the way it goes to the Rebbe, because the Rebbe taught us, and the Rebbe gave us, and the Rebbe told us, but the Rebbe, we have to go through. So when we talk about the Mittel Rebbe, this is the representation of the epitome of learning Chassidus. They say, just saying things that come to my mind, the Mariel, the Tzemach Tzedek's son, the Mariel, Kopister, was a big chassid of the Mittel Rebbe. He was an Einik of the Mittel Rebbe, and he was old enough in the time of the Mittel Rebbe, so he was really Mekusher to the Mittel Rebbe. And they used to call him, what did they call him? Not the Horb, call him the, something like,
Stender?
The
Stender?
The Stender, oh, that's the word, the Stender. They used to call him the Stender. So his brothers asked him, why are you called the Stender? He didn't want to tell him. Finally, he told him that the Mittel Rebbe would sometimes say Chassidus, he'd have to have something to lean on, so he would bend down and he would lean on him. They asked him, for that you called. It happened once, I think he said, if I remember correctly, 18 hours. He said Chassidus on him. So he was, because the Mittel Rebbe was the whole union of Chassidus. The player by the gay, the Mariel, he was a chassid of the Mittel Rebbe, but when the Tzemach Tzedek once went on in the Sia to different cities to speak Chassidus and things, so he took along the Mariel, the son. And when he came back, the Rebbe asked him to give him a report what happened. So he says, through this Nesiya, Mertzuki Kumen ein chassid. I got one chassid extra now. That's who? Unser Mariel, our son the Mariel. Because when he saw what's going on with the Tzemach Tzedek, he became a chassid of Tzemach Tzedek. But that's him as the Mittel Rebbe. Why? Because this was the Inyan of Chassidus. So for us, when we talk about the Tes Kislev, Yud Kislev, the Mittel Rebbe, what is it supposed to be me'erer in us? It's supposed to be me'erer in us this nekuda of learning Chassidus and the oplik of Chassidus, and realizing what it is. Because there's so many things we have to do. With Chassidus, learn Nigla, we have to do Mitzvah, we have to do everything. But we have to focus, after all, Chassidus Chabad, and the Rebbe didn't take away the Yom of learning Chassidus. The Rebbe pushed learning Chassidus, but on top of that, he didn't let, more and more and more. But that Nekuda has to be stressed. Sometimes you have to stress other things, sometimes you have to stress this. So it comes to Yud Kislev, the Mittel Rebbe, his whole focus was the union of learning Chassidus and the Opleg from Ein Eid Milvade. And that's what we have to focus on. And I think like this, I don't know if it's true, in Darges of Aveda, certain things that they had in the Molech Chassidim, even Chassidim in Lubavitch, not in the Alter Rebbe's time, Mittel Rebbe, we're not shaykhs to it. All the Aveda and Iskafi, all this, we're not shaykhs. We got to do it in such a small amount, but in the understanding of the emeskite of the kus, that we're kalim for. The problem would be that we understand that lavdavke, we act upon it because we have a yetzer hara, and that's something that we have to do. But the level of understanding, even though we know that Rabbeim said, the Rabbi Rashab said, and the Friedrich Rebbe, that if you have a scholar of Chassidus without Aveda is going to shvert, it's nothing, it's whatever. But I'm not talking now about the part of Aveda, but talking the opleg of what we learn in Chassidus at Ein Eid Milvadei, which is what the Nekud of Chassidus is, that we're shaykhs to understand. We're shaykhs to understand it. As a matter of fact, after having the Rebbe's biyurim, all the biyurim from, we have it in a way that we could understand, it's lower down to us that we could be able to understand it. So as much as the Rebbe says that there's a bina by the Mittel Rebbe that was mamshich from Chochmah to bina to lower Madrege and brought it down Lamato, every generation it went lower. And by the Rebbe, by us, it came down very low. So the understanding of what Chassidus wants us to uplick, which is the ganze Tachlis. If someone will ask you in a word, in a nutshell, tell me what is Chassidus about? What is Chassidus about? Hundreds of foreign Chassidus, what is it all about? If you give me in one word, the word is going to be the uplick of Ein Eid Milvadi. That's what it is. In Azabir, and from this angle, from that angle, on this posik, on that posik, different things. But it's all one thing. So that nekuda of the uplick of that there's only one thing is the Eibishter, and everything is not. In Havone v'Hasoge, in Haskola, I think it's possible for us. Especially, I'm saying, if you learn with the Rebbe's Biyurim, which brings it down. And this is what we have to take out. And I'm not saying it to anybody, obviously. I mean, everyone, I don't have to bavon this here. I'm just saying the Inyan the way it is. Maybe if I speak enough, it'll affect me too. Like the Rebbe Rashav used to say sometimes, the Rebbe said, if I bring it, so I'm saying, but that's what Inyan of Chassidus. And if you learn Chassidus, you get to understand that. And I tell you, it's interesting that some of the Polish Chassidim who are shaykhs to learn Chassidus Chabad, they chapazuv. I remember once I was in shul, Shabbos was a kiddush, and there was a few non-Lubavitcher guys with Steinlach and this, and we're talking this and that. So one guy turns around to me, another guy said he's right. Fine, I'll say good. I said, "Avot here, avot there." They know that's what Chassidus Chabad is all about. I know sometimes you deal with these non-Lubavitcher became Lubavitcher Chassidish Yidden. Like them, they know this is what Chassidus is all about, and we have to do it. And when we learn Chassidus, Lek Sachot Emes, and when you learn, if you don't learn, it doesn't. No, Purim Toshin Tez Zion, famous Fabrengen Purim Toshin Tez Zion. What happened then? In Eretz Yisrael, the Polekan had a Fabrengen. Somebody was Yitzis Kislev. I think it was Yitzis Kislev. And those times, some Bochrim from Snagish Yeshivas came to his Fabrengen. And he said something which probably, if it'd be politically correct, he shouldn't have said it. But he did say it. It was not long, I think, after the Chazon Ish passed away. And another kid, a young Bocher, Lubavitcher Bocher, who learned in Fatmimim, also passed away. So he was Fabrengen. And the Rebbe said, when he told over this, he said he was Lachar, Ketev Leibe Bayoyin. He was Asach Mashke. And he said that they both went up Lamaila. And finally, when they came to one Heichal, this Gadol B'Yisrael tried to get in and they wouldn't let him in. But this kid who learned Timchat Mimim, for him to open the door. And when he got in, so that guy is Charangechapt. That's what he said. So the Rebbe Fabrengen said that, he didn't say these words, but somebody said something like this. So he said, if you listen to, I wasn't there, that's Fabrengen, stuff Shita Zion, but if you listen to the tape, Mitzayches zu sagen, der Eretz Yisrael die gepotscht ist reich geworden. The Israeli mail became rich. So many letters were sent, so many post stamps were used. I got so many letters from people like Tochen, how could you say this guy is a Gadol B'Yisrael? How could you say it? And the Rebbe explained, he said, I'll explain it. And he explained it based on the Gemara. The Gemara says that La'osid is the Eibishter will make for every tzaddik a chuppah. And chuppah means a madrega. He's going to be involved in a certain madrega. And everyone will be burnt by the chuppah of somebody else, of the other guy. What's the pshat? Why will each one be burnt? Because each one will be in a place where he is shaykhs to. Someone else who's not shaykhs to that Indian can't get in there. If it gets in there, it'll burn him. But since every tzaddik wants to have more and more, so he's going to nevertheless try to get in and get burned. Abi should be able to go in there. But why will he get burned? Because he's not shaykhs to go in, because it's not his Indian. So the Rebbe said the same thing here. A person who didn't learn Chassidus, there's an Indian Lamaila, they know the truth, the Indian Lamaila Chassidus, and someone who learned Chassidus has his chuppah, has a place where he could go. Someone that didn't learn, and the Rebbe even used the Lashon, listen, that he didn't learn not because he didn't know about it, he just didn't hold of it, so he can't get in. And he was referring to him that he didn't learn Chassidus, so he can't get in. He wasn't chas v'sholem knocking him or something. He has his own inyanim. But this nakuda that this kid from Timchat Mimim got, he doesn't have it. And he can't get in. And nevertheless, he'll try to get in. That's why it says they'll get burned. You know you'll get burned, but you try it. So he tried to get in. Because if you learn Chassidus, there is something that's there that if you don't learn, you're missing. And this is every kid in Timchat Mimim. A kid who learns in Timchat Mimim and just starts learning Tanya. If you learn and the teacher, the first thing that he lekes a even as a young kid, is as nicht talking Welt. That's lekes a chob. That's nicht talking Welt. And that's what Chassidus says. And that's a pashtus. Certain things that are pashut if you learn Chassidus, which if you don't learn, they're not pashut. In the Maimer in Chassidus, in the Reb Marasha Maimer, it says, how do you know Asidah Welt? Maybe the Welt is an Achizas Anayim. Maybe the world is an imagination. It says, how do I know Asidah Welt? The Torah is Breishis Borah Lekimas Hashemayim V'Zoretz. It's only from the Torah. Otherwise, maybe Taka nicht talking Welt. And there's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if a person does magic, so you chayiv misa. But there's another type of magic which is called imagination. It's called you do things which is an illusion. So if it says like this, if you make through magic melaket kishuyim, that melons will be collected, and if it's real magic, you're chayiv misa. But if it's only an illusion, you're potter. The question is, if the ganze Welt is an illusion, then even when you really do it, it's an illusion. Is Araya from the Mishnah Asidah Welt. So, but be'etzem wie gelegt, if you learn Chassidus, even the beginning, elementary, as nicht in Welt. If you don't learn Chassidus, it works the opposite. You know what happens if you don't learn Chassidus? They once asked a guy, how do you know Asidah Eibishter? You know what he answered? Weil der Rambam paskent azay. The Rambam says, in the beginning, Yeseda, V'amud HaChochmah, Sheyesh HaMotzer Rishon. So the Rambam paskent Asidah Eibishter. And the Neisa Kelim, the Ravid, and the Radvaz, and the Kesev Mishnah, and the Makshim, no one argues. And the Klal in Rambam is that if the Neisa Kelim don't argue, Asim and they're maskim. So all the poskim are maskim Asidah Eibishter. Veis min Asidah Eibishter. And that's the difference. If you learn Chassidus, Veis min Asidah Welt, weil sie steht in Teire. And by others, find the Veis min Asidah Eibishter, weil sie steht in Teire. Is da Asim and Asidah Eibishter. So this is the nekuda that we have to take out. Learn Chassidus, what was the chogelegt by the Chassidim. So not in say madrege, but in understanding. If you really learn Chassidus, people like us can understand and zachopleg them. So Eba Zevet Takasha. So why aren't you a tzaddik if you really know? I have a big Yetzer Hara, and I can't help it. I can help it this, but we're not in that madrege. But the opleg, the seichel shabodover, it's there. Chassidim used to say, if you learn Sharichot V'Amunah. So the third Perek of Sharichot, he explains this inyan that's nicht in Welt. The ganze Welt is bottled to and soft, like the Eir in the Moyer, very weird. Then the Perek finishes off, so we have to understand, according to this, how is there a Welt? And in the next Perek, he starts off to be Mavaya to answer. Samod Nezach, finish a Perek in the middle of a Kasha. Kasha is nicht in Welt. Eba Zevi Azei is da Welt. So what they used to say is Amol is like this. Like Chassidim, they knew that we don't learn Chkiras Svarim. Chkiras Svarim is philosophies, even from great people, which is fake Kashas and the Eibishter and Masbir. Why shouldn't you learn it? Because it's very possible that, first of all, you might learn, understand the Kasha, and then not understand the Teretz. What's going to happen? You'll be left on Apikadas. You'll have fakes in the Munah because you left with the Kasha. Another thing they would say is, imagine a person learns Ashtikal in the Sefer, and he learns the Kasha on the Munah Devish. He learns the Kasha. And it's late, decides to go to sleep. Tomorrow I'm going to learn the Teretz. The meantime, a whole night, he's sleeping as an Apikeres. A whole night he's sleeping with the Kasha. So that's why some people, what they used to do is they used to learn the Teretz and then the Kasha. They learn the Teretz and the Kasha already know the Teretz. They even brought a remez. We say in davening, then we say Mikil should be the opposite. Me is a question. Who's like our God? Answer should be no is like our God. How can we learn the answer before the Kasha? So the same thing, we learn the answer before the Kasha. But the reason why we don't learn otherwise is because we don't want to be left over at night to sleep with shilas in the munah, sveikis in the munah. That's the reason that Alter Rebbe finished the Perek with a kasha. Why? Because usually when you finish a Perek, you stop, you're mafsik. So what will happen? Person will learn it, come to the end of the Perek, he'll have a kasha. And the teretz will learn tomorrow. So what's going to be? That throughout the night, he'll be sleeping with a kasha. What's going to be the kasha? No. Such a kasha doesn't really matter if a person goes to sleep and has this kasha. So because if you learn Chassidus, you don't have the kasha, but you don't. You know there's an Eibishter, and that's in Stocken Welt. It's ugly like in Stocken Welt. So that's what is the heroic, or what we have to think about when we learn Chassidus, to learn B'tanemes. And then also, when you teach Chassidus, then you could teach it to other people also. I'm saying, Agam, it sounds like you're talking about Haim Adreges, Oplik from the Lakusa. I'm not talking about Oplik of Lakusa, but the understanding of what it says. There's a sicha from the Rebbe, interesting sicha, Pashas Breishis. On the first posik, says Breishis Bora Lakim et Hashemayim v'Soretz. So Rasha starts off by saying, Ein kosov zeh eimer ela dorsheni. Just learning the posik Breishis Bora Lakim itself tells you have to darshan the pshat. And what's the drash? The drash is that Yishvil Beis Reishis, that the Eibusha created the world for two things called Reishis, which is Yidden and Eibush and Torah. That's how you have to drash in the posuk. And he starts off, Eina kos of el dersheni. You must, in other words, the posuk itself says you drash. Then Rashi continues. If you're going to want to darshan, learn the pshat of the posuk, this is the pshat. The pshat is that when the Eibush created the world, whatever. The Rebbe asked an interesting shaila. If the Rashi says that you could, if you want to, you could say pshat, how does Rashi start off by saying that the posuk, you could, you must dash in the pasuk. You must say a drash. The pshat is not good. When he says right away, there is a pshat. And the second shaila, if there is a pshat, why doesn't he say that first? Every time when there's a pshat and the drash, first is pshat, then the drash. So the Rebbe Taich, mamish, when you learn the pasuk, Breishis Bora L'Kimas Hashemayim Bora, they created the world. The first sugain is there's no such thing as Poshet Avelt. The Eibishter created the world, and that's what it is. Right away, when you know that there's a Welt, you have to know there's Sheni, you have to darshan B'shvil Yisrael B'shvil HaTorah. That the Welt Be'etzim is not a Metzias. It's only a Metzias because of Yidden and the Torah, which is because of the Eibishter. Then, you could say, you could be Mamsh that. There's a Pshat, a Welt, and in Welt, you be Mamsh this. But this is the way we darshan. There's no other way. There is a pshat, but that's not it. It's no other way. You gotta darshan that there's nishtokin Welt. And that's the lesson we have to take from Yud Kislev, Tes Kislev, Avada, Yud Kislev, Avada. That's the union of Chassidus Bechlal. But from the Mittel Rebbe, it's not so much the learning Chassidus as much as the ligan Chassidus. And that's for us. I don't know what Madregas we have, but in the understanding what Chassidus is. So, say l'chaim, and take a little bit to heart this nakuda of what Yud Kislev, Tes Kislev, the Mittel Rebbe. I heard from, I remember some of the Fabrengas that we used to hear from the Elter Chassidim. See, now we're already talking in the year Tovshin Peyala. We're talking about the year Tovshin Chof Beis and Chof Alev. Those years, the Elter Chassidim who were in Lubavitch, and they were so they. I once heard from, I don't know if it was the Peretz or maybe for somebody else, that by the Rabbeim, the Mittel Rebbe was very chaviv. That's what one of them used, more chaviv than the other Rabbeim. It was a special chviris to the Mittel Rebbe. The Mittel Rebbe was something, to us, who's there? Like we just heard on the video from the Rebbe, who's there to measure the Rabbeim one to another? But something there, something in the Mittel Rebbe was something. That's what he said. Something special, and he said it over in the Chassidim, Alter Chassidim, that by the Rabbein, the other Rabbein, the Mittel Rebbe was something special. And this is all because the Etzem, the Kud of Chassidus is by the Mittel Rebbe. He brought the Spash of Chassidus, like we said before, the Afotzim and Chutza, there was a Dargi in Chutza that came from the Mittel Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was Mekudas, and the Mittel Rebbe is Hispashtus. I remember there's a sicha in Chelik Hey that the Rebbe says there, on the posting of this week's Pasha, Gal Eidazeh. Gal says in Siddur, like Beimer, Gal is like Lamed Gimel. This is the pile that Yaakov made between him and Lavan. So the Rebbe teaches that on the Mittel Rebbe, that there is a mechitza between Nigla and Pnimius, but it's a mechitza made not of a wall, but a pile of stones. Pile of stones means that you could take it apart. If wall, you can't. It's a wall. It means sometimes you could. And when you have to, you're able to take it apart. Like Rasha says, that he says we can't cross over Leroa, but Prakamatya, you could. But the Mitler Rebbe also, he crossed over and there's a mechitza, even by the Alter Rebbe, there were certain dargas in Chassidus that the Alter Rebbe wasn't Megala. As much as the Alter Rebbe was Megala, the Yesod of Chassidus, but the Rebbe says that certain things that he wasn't Megala. Actually, this fits, I don't know if it has connection, but it fits to, they say that the Alter Rebbe said once that all the inyonim that he said, all the mamorim, everything he's saying, is als from the Magid, based on the Magid, and als from the Teres of the Magid by the first Suda of Shabbos. I guess from all the Shabbos and the first Suda. And from them habe ich noch echt pek pek. And even from that, I have so much more to say. But from the other two Sudas, I didn't even start saying. So the Alter Rebbe had, but it wasn't Megala. So there means there was supposed to be a mechitza, just like in Gemara it says there's a mechitza between Nigla and Nister, and the Rashbi, so to speak, crossed over that mechitza because he was supposed to. So the Mittel Rebbe also crossed over a mechitza, even the mechitza of the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe and the sicha, the way it was given in Rebbe, I remember this was Chilik Hey, it was made in Topshin Lamed or Lamed Aleph. So the way it was written was the Alter Rebbe was gave Teire in the Eifen of the Kude, and the Mittel Rebbe is his pashtas. I remember I saw the Ksav. I was a little bit involved in even Rabbi Leib wrote the sicha. So I saw the Rebbe was Magia, and the Rebbe added. It said there that the Alter Rebbe said Chassidus ben Eifen on the Kude, and the Rebbe added another word Nekude. The first glance when I saw it, what do you mean Nekude? Chapsach. He says that Eifen on the Kude means that the whole Chassidus is on the Kude. There's no. His chassidus was Nekuda. The old inyonim that he said were in the Nekudas dik Eifen. He said many inyonim, but in Nekuda, another Nekuda. And the Mittel Rebbe, that was the inyan of his pashtas, that the inyan was his pashtas. So the inyan that, what's the chiluk in Nekuda and his pashtas? What's the chiluk in Nekuda? Etzem and Gilui. We learned before Etzem. Etzem is inside you. It's the Etzem of you, but it's not that you feel it, not that it's out. And his pashtas is his galus. His pashtas that it's there, you feel it. The Mittel Rebbe's inyan was that the chassidus will durchnehmen and you should feel it. And if we're here on Yud Kislev, Tes Kislev, Yud Kislev, that's what we have to think about. Each one in his way, in his level, and take it along with us for Tes Kislev or whatever we're going to say. So maybe we should say L'chaim, and maybe we'll try sing another nigun. Maybe someone else will want to say something afterwards. So L'chaim, L'chaim.
Chaim.
Fine.
Oh, you put on another nigun. Frankfurter, maybe you say something. Want to say something, maybe? Okay. Rabbi Frankfurter, are you saying something?
So Rabbi Biston is on with the microphone on, so let Rabbi Biston.
Oh, Rabbi Biston, okay.
Yeshikoyach Rabbi Frankfurter and Rabbi Schapiro for arranging this sicha. A beautiful thing, and we have to thank the Rebbeinu Shalom that we have a Zoom, because they used to corrected the like the Rebbe said, created the Zoom so we could bring. So I just want, but Mittler Rebbe, I remember Rabbi Shapiro bringing many years ago. He said that when the Mittler Rebbe used to write Chassidus on his table, so there's Meshoros Shamas, had to put the next piece of paper, and sometimes he would miss. So some of the words would come out on the stender. That even the stender was full of Chassidus. That's how much Chassidus that he wrote, and he said that he wrote so fast that a person's mind can't even think the way he used to write. Listen, the Mittler Rebbe was the Bina who exploded this. I had a question after Shapiro. So how come was the Maril was Taka Chosid of the Mittler Rebbe and not of his father, of the Tzemach Tzedek? Not later when he recognized him. How come?
Adarabbe, if he was a real Chosid of the Mittler Rebbe, to change over, and it is a different style, it's very hard. So somebody whose his kashrus is not so deep. So now I'm to him. But if the kashrus is nem durch ad etzem hanefesh, it's, you could work on it. It takes time to work on it till you really nem das durch. Because sometimes some people have such a deep understanding that haino hach and b'meila it's not changing. But b'derech klal, it's very hard. If it's a real kashrus, very hard.
I have to say,
time, but eventually.
I'm going to go off a tangent for a second on what you just exactly said here now. So the tangent is I want to go off. I don't really, I know it's far brain, but there's some Lubavitchers that go to other kreisen because you can't speak to the Rebbe today. But I believe if you have a skashis to the Rebbe, you can't look anywhere in any other waters. There's only one place. We have the Mokor, and the Mokor finds a way to answer you. And we know the answers come today just as quick as they came before. Before it was B'dibur of Ksav, and today the Rebbe puts into our machshava. exactly the brachas that we have to do. So we don't have to look at any other place. No, they go to Israel, they go to this guy. We don't can exist gain. We have the Rebbe, just like if you have a skashus, which Chassidim have. If you learn Chassidus, you learn the Rebbe Sichas. There's no other way. So we just want to be more that we have to be stick to it. So the Mittler Rebbe was when he said they should bring a Mayom Halula, which is Yud Kislev, and he was Nifter
Chagagula, yeah.
Chagula, but his Yom Halula was a day before, passed away a day before, and a year later, the Chassidim had a command for the Rebbe, they have to verbring, and the Rebbe gesagt, was not freilich sein. So they sang it in a niggin that the Rebbe told us we have to be happy, but really they weren't happy. But since they had a command from the Rebbe, so we have a command from the Rebbe to do Mivtzoyim, to learn Chitas, to learn Rambam, and to do Mivtzoyim, and to do all these things. So I'll tell you, today we had a wedding in the shul over here, a Frankfurter, God bless him, and there's a bunch of workers over here, and they were speaking Hebrew. So a bocher comes over to me, he says, these guys put on tefillin. You know, I'm sitting in the Chabad, and I make sure everybody walks to my Dal Lamas, doesn't get away with not putting on tefillin, but it's ready to ski already. You know, I wasn't going to bother. These bochum pulled them in and wrapped them with tefillin, so it was like the ski time already. I was having Mincha Shul, 5:23, 5:24. They wrapped the tefillin. So I got to say, the bochum have a koch, that even after the ski, you were doing the ski, let's say, just like by Erev, we're learning Erev now. In Rambam, it says, even though Ben Shmoshes, you can make it, right? So you can put a film Ben Shmoshes also, I think. When these guys do the Rebbe's, the Mekushit to the Rebbe, maybe without a bracha, but you can put them on. I know once there was when I was in 770, so there was a bocher in my class who forgot to daven Shachris, and he went over to, I think, either the Shalom Rozov or to Rebbe Mentlik, and asked him for a tikkun. He remembered that Bosh after Shkia. So he said, I should put it on now at night, but I should obviously not to make a bracha. Just put them on, say Shema, and take them off. So in other words, there is an Inyan to do it Shkia after Shkia, only as I guess as a remembrance. I shouldn't come to it. It shouldn't happen to anybody. But I remember the bracha still till today who he is. Takagach, such a guy, Lamdin and everything, and it could happen. Chas v'sholom. Anyways, we have to follow the Rebbe's ways. We have the Mittler Rebbe taught us the Bina, and the Rebbe taught us everything else. Put everything together, and we have so much. We have such a kval of Chassidus. That we can just learn the regular Chassidus from the Rebbe. Not to be say anything else, but I'm saying the Rebbe's Chassidus is very important. And I think what you're doing with Lakutei Sichos, Rabbi Leib, the whole world is doing it, is Poshet bring the world closer to the Rebbe's Chassidus. And even though Lakutei Sichos, you want to say something simple, but it's Professor Rosen.
Not simple.
What?
Not so simple.
I know it's not so simple, but once when I was 14 years old and I forgot who I was learning Chassidus with in Bedford, and then I can't remember who. Anyways, so they asked me if I learned Chassidus. So I said, of course, I learned my father Chassidus. Was lernst du? I said, I learned Lakutei Sichos. That's gar nicht. But then there was only Chelik Alpha Beis Gimel out. That's not Chassidus. I was like a bit taken back by it, but if that's what they said, I guess you got to learn my Morim. So, of course, Sichos is not so simple. Professor Rosenblum, who was Baal Tshuva of the Rebbe, who was the biggest math professor in America, so he used to stay by my Babel home. So, anyways, so he used to learn the Rebbe Sichos. He learned Yiddish, learned the Sichos. So we used to eat with him Shabbos afternoon. We used to eat together after the Farang. So he tells me, he says, I was a bach then, the young fella. He says, I learned the Rebbe Sichos once, and then when I learned it a second time, I didn't understand the first time. And then when I learned a third time, I can't imagine how deep it goes. We think it's simple, it's in Yiddish and it's simple, but it's so deep. And he was a kopmensch. Every time I learn it, I see how much deeper and deeper. I know I'm going off topic, but just was on my mind. Anyways, l'chaim, Rabbi Schapiro, we all love you, and thank you very much for bringing the sichas closer to us. And it was many people teach it, but you're my favorite, which I tell you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I see the list grew now. Can you know you have a lot of people on tonight? I just looked before, 74 people. Maybe it's your verbring. Anyways, I'm out. I give it over to the chairman. Shkoyach.
Rabbi Frankfurter now. Thank you. Yasha Kedah.
Chaim. There's another 50 or more people on YouTube. Not just this.
Okay.
There's people that watch it later, whatever different time zone. But just the one story that I heard today to follow up what Rabbi Bistan was saying. But how the Rebbe answers. So with the COVID and some sort of unemployment, or not having to go to shul, shurim are taking different places. So I started a project, and I'm interviewing French-speaking shluchim throughout the world. And I discover every time different shluchim in different places, and it's in Africa, in South America, obviously in Europe, and Eretz Yisrael, different shluchim. And I do that by charge with Balabatim, the French people, so they get to discover shluchim in interesting places. So that's the idea. So today I had an interview with a Gurevich, Mendel Gurevich, originally from France. He's on a shlich in Offenbach in Germany. It's a city near Frankfurt. And he was telling me a story that happened, that was part of the interview, that they had a winter camp a few years ago. And the winter camp was supposed to happen, or really was not supposed to happen. But winter break was about 3 weeks after they just had a baby. And his wife was usually the one to take care of the camp, and she was not up to it. And they were tired and not in a mood or whatever it was, and they weren't necessarily going to make the camp. So they had a boss from the community. They asked them, what's with the camp? What's going on with the camp? So once he asked already, so they said, okay, we'll put something together. So they put something together, and Thursday before the camp was about to start the following Monday, they had 4 kids registered. And being that they really, to begin with, they were not exactly excited, and with the student, 4 kids, it really was not, they were less than enthusiastic about it. So they wrote to the Rebbe. It was after Gimel Tammuz. His wife, the Shlech said his wife wrote to put a letter in the Igros. And there was a letter about camp, that you have to do camp, and it's kedai even for 1 child. It's kedai. So, fine. So they went ahead with 4 kids. Baruch Hashem said they're over, by the time the camp started was the following Monday, they had over 20 kids. But there was 1 kid over there that really caught on. A kid called Alex. And he really got into the spirit, and he really got excited. And so excited that a few weeks later they were going to have a trip to Eretz Yisrael. So he told me that was the trip, was actually the last trip that was this past February. So the camp was about a year ago, the winter break about a year ago. And so the trip for last February was the last trip that they did, and then was Purim, and that was COVID. So anyway, so the kid really got excited, but a few weeks later they were going to have the trip to Eretz Yisrael. But the trip was full, and that kid really got into it, got really excited, wanted to join the trip, but he couldn't make it. The trip was for bar and bas mitzvah. Kids that were going to be bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah for that year, so they were going to a trip. All of different Chabad Shluchim. It says Rabbi Benny Wolf Alav Shalom was part of that trip, and it was sponsored by I forgot the exact term, Vad Rabbonim of Chabad of Europe, so some Chabad Rabbonim organization, I forgot the exact title. In any event, so the kid wanted to very much join, but there was no room. It was full, and that's it. It was trip that the tickets to Israel, they couldn't make it. At the last minute, they had 1 kid that couldn't travel, got sick or something like that, so they had a spot open. They called the mother. There's an opening. The child went in on that trip. And the shlich told me they were making a big shturim about, because it's about bar and bas mitzvah, by the Yom Holodes, by the birthday, to make a big deal about it. And they told the kids all about the birthday, and the kids were checked out the Jewish birthday, and it turned out to be that kid Alex, that really got excited. his birthday, his bar mitzvah, the real day of this bar mitzvah, which he didn't know, he didn't know the Jewish date, fell on the day they arrived to Eretz Yisrael. So, and that kid really, like I said, he really got involved, and he was the one pushing all the other boys to put on tefillin and to daven. He was really the engine behind everything, that had the energy behind that trip. So I said that when they look back at that letter from the Rebbe, that sometimes could die for one child, so they knew who that one child was. That Alex, the kid Alex, that really motivated the whole group and really was somehow a spot opened up for him in the trip. So that's something that he shared with me. So certainly, like you're saying, Rabbi Biston, the Rebbe accompanies us throughout everything. And, we have the brachas of the Rebbe, and we don't have to go anywhere. But, and we have it. And, but still, it's nice to have, reveal answers, so the Rebbe should come back very soon. And not to be satisfied the way things are. Still shocking sometimes to hear that the Mitzvah Shem, the world's going to come back together, we'll come back to the oil. That's not what we're waiting for. Waiting for something more than that. But, there was Chusavlani Chassidus. Mitreves Chassidim didn't need Mashiach. We need it very much, so it should happen. Chaim.
Shkoyach, beautiful story.
Yeah.
Beautiful story. Reminds me of Rabbi Chaim Gutnick in Australia. He tells a story that when the Rebbe spoke about Hasan Shpocha, the Rebbe told me he should make a big shiur when he goes back to Australia to make a big shiur about it. Now, what's the worst thing? If one person shows up to your class, you're stuck. You have to give the class and If no one shows up, at least you could say you had a great class. But anyways, one lady showed up to all of his 3 classes. The next day he came back, 2 years later, he went back to the Rebbe. He wrote to the Rebbe, disappointed that only one lady came. So the Rebbe said, Moshe Rabbeinu only had one mother. Yeah. One person. We never know the one person, that Alex, that kid. Yeah. The Neshamas. Heiligen Neshamas.
Elam Ole.
Yeah.
One neshama, one need is an Elam Ole.
Yeah.
Listen, Rabbi Frankfurt, Rabbi Schapiro, there's other people on the Rabbi Frankfurt. You see who's on here. Just ask someone to say a few words.
Yeah.
We don't want to compete with the Shluchim thing, but pick a name. I can't see who's on. You see who's on.
Everybody could see him with a computer.
Yeah, I'm not on a computer. I'm slow fashioned.
Yeah, with the phone, it's harder. Yeah.
Huh?
I said with the phone, it's harder.
Yeah.
But
I could go on to the participants. Let's see if I can see this.
I see there's a name Hetzliach. I don't know who you are, but maybe you want to speak.
Sounds like Rabbi Bucket.
Yeah, maybe.
The voice.
I just see Hetzliach.
Rabbi Orchman. Horav Orchman. No, Orchman. Let's get off. Unmute yourself.
We have Choshev Moshe Kasovsky, Kasowitz, Moshe Dubinsky. We've got.
I'm in a listening mode.
Listening modes? Okay, we just heard you. Then we're good. The mic works.
Who's talking to Hetzliach?
I don't know.
Reitze Bilum Shmei.
If that's on his phone, that's Achenvei.
When Eichmann is on.
Borchman is on. Borchman has a lot of good stories.
Rabbi Zeitlin. We got a lot of people. Could Rabbi Paul.
These stories. Someone could say Avort. Someone could say
Avort. No. Shemsach.
Alles an Anovim,
So we're gonna. That's what we're gonna
do. Diamond. Tell us the story.
We have to honor the Anovim.
Yeah.
Yaakov Brafman. Yaakov Brafman has good stories. Sayid Shvord. Yisrael Noyach. Horav Lipsker. Yossi Lipsker. The schus der schwer, say ein word. All right.
Okay.
let me just
Shapiro,
before we
Frankfurter,
finish, I'll just say, I'll finish up with a word with the Mittel Rebbe. That's the most famous, one of the most famous verses of the Mittel Rebbe is that you should talk over things with a friend, because if you have two people talking, you have zwei nefesh elokis, afei nefesh abamis. You have two nefesh elokis fighting with a nefesh abamis, so two against one, your nefesh elokis will work. And everyone asks the shaila, what do you mean? Why is there only one nefesh abamis? There are also two nefesh abamis. Each yid has a nefesh abamis. What if shot two nefesh elokis and one nefesh abamis? So the lotion that it says, the answer is that in kedusha there's achdus, so the two go together. In klipa there is no achdus, so each one is separate. So in Mele, the two go together and they're fighting each one. But in Posha the pshat is that my nefesh elokis wants me to do good. He wants you to do good too. My nefesh elokis, I'll tell you, he wants another yid to do good. But the nefesh abamis, there's no such thing as nefesh. My nefesh abamis wants you should do bad. The Gemara says, "Ein adam chayte v'loylay." No one doesn't avera somebody else. He should do the avera. So the nefesh elokis work together, because each one, when it comes to me, my nefesh elokis works for me. Your nefesh elokis works for me too, trying to help me. But the nefesh abamis, it's not like that. Nefesh abamis, each one works for himself. So you got two against one. But the bottom line is that this is something that it's kedai. This is just saying the word of the Mittel Rebbe, that people should, you have a chavrusa in learning, you have a chavrusa to durchreden, that it always helps. And it gives a chizuk. It should give a chizuk to a person who, in Yonim Chassidus, Yonim of the Rebbe, Yonim, that to always have somebody that you're able to talk it through. So that's from the Mittel Rebbe. And then you're able to bring it down the Maaseh. And this is one of the more famous vetters, and I am getting the famous vetters in the Rebbe. Another thing I just want to say, this is also when I gave the Mittel Rebbe, which also it says in Sipurim Neroyin, Yankel Kadane writes there that he was once in a place, he went a lot of times in the seas with the Mittel Rebbe, came to a city, and then the Mittel Rebbe was davening, the Shamish, the Meshoras comes out to him and he says, "Come, you want to see how the Rebbe davens? Come, I'll show you." So he went there and they saw the Mittel Rebbe standing in the middle of the room and davening. So he says, "Look." So he said, you got scared. Look in the Rebbe's face, and the Rebbe is here, he's going to see me. He says, "Don't worry." He doesn't hear, he doesn't see, and he does this, and he could just look at me for hours like that. And he stood there till 3 o'clock in the morning. And was just watching, and then the Mittel Rebbe didn't see. But it came 3 o'clock in the morning, and the Shonas felt the Mittel Rebbe has to eat. So he came over, tried to tap him, and Abgenessen. So the Mittel Rebbe turned around, went over to the wall, and stood there for another hour. He left. He said there was nothing to see because he was facing the wall. But the next morning he said that he stood there for another hour, and then he went and he finished davening. I think he said there he was very besimcha, and he came and he served him food. Later he asked him what was so simcha here by him. So he said that I was chazering a maimer, and usually when I say a maimer, my father, the Alter Rebbe, comes to me in middle of the maimer. This time he came in the beginning of the Maimer, and he came together with two more people. And the two more people were the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. And they heard the Maimer. And they praised the Maimer. They said that the Maimer, they left and the Alter Rebbe stayed. And the Alter Rebbe said to him that, the Tata said to me that he wants me to chazan the Maimer to him again. So when he went over to the wall, I think that he says that's when he was chazaning the Maimer again to the Alter Rebbe. So I'm just trying to bring out the what we're saying before, but negate the Mittel Rebbe. But the truth is, negate the Meifsim, we don't have to come on to the Mittel Rebbe with all the Meifsim. There was nobody who we saw Meifsim in all the Rabbeim like by the Rebbe. I remember my father told me once he heard from Rabbi Shmuel of Witten. Early years after Chesed came to the Rebbe, used to come to the Rebbe, the Dalet, as well. And he said he heard from Rabbi Shmuel said that the Chlal by the Rabbeim is given bavust, that the first year of Nesias, they did a lot of medicine. He says, Bam Rebbe, the Lashon, he said, it got Hatzlocha in Meifsim, that it was the Meifsim where Hatzlocha in Meifsim. I once heard Mr. Nissan Mendel, he says, Toshin Yud was a Maisa with a person that asked a bracha from the Rebbe. After he started to the Rebbe, he gave a bracha, and he was from the army or something, and he comes running into Merkaz, the Rebbe, and he's told over what happened, and he says, "You see, the Rebbe Pravit Meifsim, the Friedrich Rebbe." So Lisa Mendel says to the Rebbe, "Or der Rebbe Pravit Meifsim." Points, "Or der Rebbe." The Rebbe says to him, "That a petach, you're a fool," saying that. And then Rabbi Chadok was sitting there, and he turns around and he says, "Ich halte dich also." So the Rebbe says, "Du bist doch a petach." You're also, but the Rebbe didn't want to attribute it to himself. But Lepel by the Rebbe is, and after Gimel Tammuz that we see, that's mamish. Wherever you turn, wherever you say the things that every day you hear from different people, it's even so much that you lose count of it because it's mamish. It's like they said by the Maggid, it's like Gibalgit Neifsim unter den Tisch, rolled under the table. No one even bent down to pick it up because there was so much by there. But the bundle Neifsim, a lot he did more with people who are not so mamish big chassidim. Chassidim you didn't have to, but they used to do. And after Gimel Tammuz. Anyway, for that part, we could say is Ashreina Matei Chalkeinu, that we have the Rebbe. Only thing is, we have to remember that what we really want is Shuti V'Gashmi is we are people, Gashmitiki people. Mitzad the Rebbe, there is no difference. Mitzad the Rebbe, it's all the same. The Rebbe is Ishtakta V'Kuyatim B'Chayei, more he's here, his kiruv to us, and is all the same. It's Mitzidena because we are Gashmitiki people. They say when Mishnah Masmin once heard where he was about the Friedrich Rebbe, that the Friedrich Rebbe had a stroke and you couldn't understand him talking, so he's verbringt the whole night. What was the Nekuda of his verbringen? Guck, wie grob die Welt ist geworden, und wir verstehen nicht, was der Rebbe redet. It's that the Rebbe is no difference. It's that we can't understand what the Rebbe is speaking. That's the pshat. So it's our problem that not to see. They say the Koshin Tzarmagid before his istalkes, he told his son, "You should know I reached a madrege that this is not a goof anymore." So he said to him, "Tate, but if I touch you, I feel goof." So he says, "Yeah, because you're touching with goof. It's your problem. You're touching with goof." But so Mitzad the Rebbe, it's Mitzad us. But sof kol sof, it's us. We are Gashmitiki people, and we. So that's why we hope and pray, and we're sure that very, very soon Mashiach will come, and we'll see the Rebbe again, and what will be then? In the Shem Eisen, the Zalman Duchman writes that the Isaac Homler said that Mashiach will come, jeder einer gain that gain some Moshe Rabbeinu, think it's this, ich will gain some Rebbe. I'm going to go to the Rebbe. Tell him, you guys can do whatever you want. Ich will gain some Rebbe. I, Moshe Rabbeinu. So on this, I think it's on this that the Rebbe makes a ha'orah. I didn't see it now. They reprinted the Shem Eisen. I remember it from when the Shem Eisen came out, 55 years ago. I remember that there's a order from the Rebbe there on his because he gave him the ksovim to the Rebbe before he printed. The Rebbe writes, "Re'ei, say that Adeiris." The famous story with the Rabbi Natam and Moshe Rabbeinu. There was a machlekes that Rabbi Natam had with other rabbonim about the film, not the regular Rabbi Natam's film, about the kesher. And they said different than him. And he said to them, "I'll prove you I'm right. I'm going to bring down Moshe Rabbeinu." So he brought down Moshe Rabbeinu. Mamish made it the kid. And they asked him, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Not like Rabbi Natam." So Rabbi Natam says to Moshe, "Moshe to'iso." Moshe, you made a mistake. So it brings it, in other words, even to Moshe Rabbeinu, but the Rebbe, in other words, that's, Moshe Rabbeinu has two hats. He doesn't explain it like that. Moshe Rabbeinu has the Kabbalah Teh. Whatever the Eibush gave him, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. No one could argue, no. But then to understand it, to learn, that's Teir Shemapeh, that the Chachamim had the Klolim, and with the Klolim, they figured out. So Moshe Rabbeinu could figure it out, and the other Chachamim could figure it out. So, B'meila, that's what he said. I'll go to the Rebbe. Anyone can go Moshe Rabbeinu, but our Shaykhis is the Rebbe. So, Mashiach will come, and we'll be back. We'll see the Rebbe. It should be very, very soon. The nest of the Rebbe, the seeing the Rebbe now, you see, because these kashas of the Chassidim, and the people who never saw the Rebbe, were born after Gibel Tammuz and born people are, Bochum are 17 years old now. They were born not only after Gimel Tammuz, many years after Gimel Tammuz. And the Skashers, I think the Shiva by us. Yeah, Bochum, that they talk, like Bochum has spoken in the Chofs, but the Rebbe in the Pati. Where does it come from? It's a Pelodic Gezach. This is a way to show the Keiches of the Rebbe. Anyway, but it's all good and fine. But you know, it's not good and fine. You have to see the Rebbe Bein Abosir. Begashmi is very, very soon. L'chaim. Okay, everyone could continue.
Rabbi Yossi Biston, he mentioned my shver. So
Yes.
it's still Chaim for Rufo Shleim for my shver. Moshe ben Chassia Dapse. Should have Rufo Shleim. Was I verbringen Nufton?
Kemal Polish Nufton, yeah.
Amen. Chaim.
Sheba Rufo Shleim should be gesund.
Korv Mamish.
Macheverov, Shasagidov, and it should be a Rufo Shleim or Kreve right away, very soon. Now it should be even stronger than before.
Amen.
Okay. So we can Mamshla verbringen, but no. Everyone, I'm finished. A gute Nacht.
A gute Nacht, yes. Thank you very much.
Everybody.
He won't shiur now.
Moshe Kassos, Shukayach.